Gotta go for hours here.
Yep. Okay. Give me 10 seconds of silence.
You don't tell me what to do.
Okay, 20 seconds of silence.
Oh, we use mic, so I'll pass you mic. Okay.
I have one here too.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning, Bitcoin, and welcome back to day 3 of our live coverage from Paralelní Polis in Prague in the Czech Republic. We're joined by Jana from Blockchain Talks in Amsterdam. How's it going, Jana?
Hi guys, thanks for having me here. I really appreciate this opportunity. Everything is going perfect in Amsterdam. I think the environment in Amsterdam in the meetup scene is very favorable, and we are doing great. So.
That's great. And how's the conference been going so far? Do you have any favorite talks or anything that you enjoyed?
I joined for Jaco Muzuko yesterday.
He makes a lot of good slides. He's a really good presenter. We were watching his speech from the Riga Baltic Honey Badger, and he kept saying, I stayed up till 3 a.m. to make these slides. And then he started running out of time, and he had to go really fast through all the slides, and I was disappointed because I wanted to see all the slides. But he has this kind of strategy for making a new presentation every time, which I totally respect. But I could also see how he'd run into time problems because you never know if you make the presentation the night before how long the presentation's going to go.
Yeah. But what I noticed with him yesterday, like he said like 3 times, okay, I have 5 minutes left. And then 5 minutes passed by and I still have 5 minutes left. And then he asked, okay, how many minutes do I have left? And the response was, okay, 20 minutes. And he was like, oh, okay, so I can slow down.
That's right.
Well, and the thing is, right, I'm a huge proponent of switching to block time and just throwing out the time zone calculations.
That's right.
And the cool thing about block time is that at any point in time, you can say with confidence that the next block is going to be in 10 minutes. Because that's how randomness works, right? And therefore, right, at any time you can say the next block is in 10 minutes.
Remember,
so
10 minutes is an average, so you might be 8 minutes, you might be 12 minutes. You're always going to be late or early to your appointments that way. So it's very tough to have a meeting with Max from now on, now that he's on block time. So.
At least it's time-stamped.
There it is, it's provable. He'll always be late or he'll always be early. You can just check the blockchain. But Jana, you mentioned you're in Amsterdam and that you're working on Blockchain Talks. What do you guys do at Blockchain Talks?
Blockchain Talks is a monthly conference hosting international speakers and ICOs as well. We've been in the market since August 2017. And besides monthly events in Amsterdam, we also hosted some in other cities like Rotterdam, Eindhoven, and The Hague.
Great.
And also we
I'm
not
a big
only
fan
host
of the
talks.
Netherlands. I got to visit there last year. It was a beautiful country.
You're very
it was
welcome.
amazing. Yeah, well, thank you.
And besides talks, we are also hosting ICO Shark Tank or some battles or Ask Me Anything sessions.
Sure, I would like to see them face off against each other. That sounds like a great idea.
Last time there was so much interaction and so much friction as well that one of our volunteers texted me that, Jana, next time we have to get an MMA cage.
That's right. A battle to the death. 2 ICOs enter, 1 ICO leaves. That's right. And also, I think that the winning ICO would always be the one I have the heaviest bags in. Forget about the others.
Yeah, well, let's see.
So do you have free events or do you charge for these events?
No, we charge for the events, and the reason for it that we have some people traveling from other cities,
Sure.
and we want to make sure that they get a spot. So this is one reason, and also another reason is that we believe that there shall be a commitment from both sides. So not only organizers and speakers arranging the stuff, creating content, but also attendees, committing at least something.
Sure.
So far it's money, but we also will do bounties, and we would like to improve.
That sounds great, and of course it costs money to rent a space and to promote the event. And do you record or live stream these events?
Yes, we do live stream.
And are those free on the internet, or are those also have a pay?
They are on our Facebook.
Well, that's great. So anyone can learn about these things, but if you want to go there in person and you want the advantages of networking and face-to-face communication, it's probably worth paying a small fee.
We also have wonderful beer-to-beer sessions. It's basically a name for our
Great.
networking
Great.
session. And also we are going to introduce KYI, Know Your Audience.
Okay.
So basically 10 people from audience will be able to pitch for 30 seconds what they're after.
Oh, nice. We used to do a similar thing at the San Francisco Bitcoin meetup. We called them lightning talks far before Lightning Network was ever a thing. And what I liked about it is they got maybe about 2 minutes to pitch their idea. And computer geeks, programmers, they don't talk in 2-minute sentences. So the buzzer would always go off, and we'd always have to give them the hook. And that's my favorite part. When you're out of time, say your web page, and you're done. And then next one comes in. So.
And we talked to Jeff Fulmo from Lightning, who's working on Lightning here on this couch with a couple other peers, and they are organizing the Lightning Hack Day in Berlin and now in New York. And he's a big fan of the unconference style of conferences and meetups, that everyone can talk and everyone can say what his or her project is and what problems he is trying to solve. And that way we have much more interaction and communication within the audience, which will of course help everyone, because this will all further all our own projects. So how do you think can these meetups be organized even more so that the community is involved and that all projects get some time within their dedication?
I also like unconference concept, especially for meeting startups and investors. This works well. We had recently a fresh conference like 2 weeks ago on one island next to Amsterdam. I think it went really great. It wasn't organized by us, but the concept worked out well.
Sure.
But for us, I mean, given the fact that we are having international speakers, the potential for collaboration with them from our audience is it's not much, I would say. So we are doing these events only for knowledge sharing and for getting latest updates from industry, basically.
And who do you have coming up? When's your next blockchain talk?
The next one is October 11th, and I would like to highlight the battle permissionless and permissioned blockchains.
Okay.
On the permissioned side, we are going to have someone from IBM. So Frans Kempen, he is a really big name in the Netherlands, IBM. And on the permissionless side, we also have some sort of permissionless blockchains maximalist. We structure the battle, so we believe.
So you decide on the weapons, like axes and swords or guns and pistols, something like that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, 2 weeks ago we had Ton Weiss in a battle against Bitcoin Cash maximalist.
Oh, how did that go?
It's I will share a feedback from the audience. It's not my opinion.
Yeah.
We have many Bitcoin maximalists in the audience, but they commented that the Bitcoin Cash maximalist was better at defending Bitcoin Cash
There it is.
than Ton Weiss. So,
in a battle of wits, it's dangerous to be unarmed. But you also mentioned that you have a day job, and we wanted to give you the chance to promote that. What are you working on in your professional life?
Okay, so blockchain talk is like my free time hobby, whatever, passion, mission, vision, everything.
Yeah.
And my full-time occupation is a peer-to-peer lending platform. It's called Ethic Hub.
Okay.
And we are microfinancing Mexican farmers. Our
Nice.
target market is also other emerging economies. And what is our competitive advantage is that we want to become DAO as soon as possible.
Sure.
And also another thing is that we provide lenders better benefits because it's they are lending money with social impact. And also borrowers get a benefit of lower interest rates than what they are used to now.
Yeah, I forget the name, but I used to donate to this online service where we would all chip in like $5, $25, and then the loans would go to people in developing countries who need it to repair their shop or to buy a cow or something like that. And I really liked it because it was like a direct lending. And certainly I think they kind of pre-funded the loans, so I was like post-funding them because the people already had the cow.
Oh, yeah.
But it was I forget the name right now, but it was a really cool idea and a great website. How are you doing it differently with, say, Bitcoin or the blockchain?
Basically, we are building on existing microfinancing framework. So on the borrower side, we are covered as it comes to risk assessment, and we have 8,000 farmers in the network.
Nice.
And currently, we are using blockchain to facilitate the transfer of value from lenders who are potentially in developed countries to borrowers in emerging economies.
Well, that sounds great.
And of course, in lending, there are risks involved, right? Inherently, there is a counterparty risk because you give the money to someone else, and you have to trust that he is going to be able to, in the future, pay back with the cash flow that he's generated. So what types of projects do you fund? And is it just consumer credits, which you buy a car for, that does not give you the cash flow to pay back the debt? Or is it more a project finance where entrepreneurs need that money to start their business to then generate cash flow, which they can use to pay back the loan?
So for us, the borrowers are coffee growers, so they follow the harvest cycles. And as mentioned, we are building on existing framework. And existing one, it's been around since 20 years, around. And default risk is 3%.
Okay.
And also, okay, it's some risk, but we are covered on the lender side because we are taking some percentage to create a reserve fund. So I think for lenders, it's a safe bet. For borrowers, I mean, we will, when something goes wrong, we'll investigate afterwards. We pay the lender.
Well, I know it can be very tough for farmers if they have a bad crop or a bad season. You don't have the money to get started again next year. You can't put the seeds in the ground. You can't grow a good crop to make up for that bad crop. So these kind of lending programs can be great for bridging that gap and keeping them going, as opposed to just letting the field sit there and completely losing the farm, right?
No, exactly. And in the next stage, we want to diversify a bit because coffee in one region in Mexico, it can be potentially high risk.
Well, and especially if you're just in one area and there's a blight on the coffee plants, and then everybody goes down. So maybe in multiple areas, multiple crops would be a great great diversification, right?
So should you be interested in some partnership, very open.
Oh, well, tell them where they can go. What's the website? They can check that out.
ethichub.com.
All right, great. Max, do you have another question?
And so, in the event of default, so if the loan, if the debtor cannot pay back the money, what is your procedure? How do you handle that type of situation?
Currently, I didn't mention our borrowers are unbanked, which makes risk assessment pretty difficult.
Yeah.
But as mentioned, we are building an existing framework, and it was introduced in a way that the communities of 8,000 people, borrowers, are clustered to communities by 20.
Okay.
And there is one representative picked, and he's like sort of responsible for creating the community. And like in Mexico, in that region, people are they know each other. They're very close connections.
Sure. Family is important. Locality is important.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly. But anyways, in case something goes wrong, as mentioned, we pay the lender, and then we investigate with the representative of the cluster, like what went wrong, why did it go wrong, and we take it from there.
All right, that sounds great. And where can people learn more about blockchain talks in the Netherlands?
We have a website, blockchaintalks.io/live. It's for live stream. Blockchain Talks.io is a website.
Nice.
We are also very active on Twitter and on meetup.com.
Great, and all the YouTube links to all the old videos are there. And if you want to attend in person in the Netherlands, they can go there and sign up, get tickets, all of that information, right?
So the next one is October 11, and the next one is November 8, and we'll be hosting MakerDAO.
All right, fantastic.
So pretty interesting stuff, I think.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jana, for being on the show. It was great to meet you.
Thanks for having me. Have a nice day. Enjoy the conference.
Yeah.
You too.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, and we're going to try to get our next guest going. We've got some people outside waiting. We're trying to get them lined up back to back today. Just like yesterday and the day before, we're going to go live as much as we can, as long as we can.
3 hours the first day, 5 hours the next day. So I guess now it's going to be 7 hours. 7 hours of live streams? That's quite a lot, Thomas. Can we do that?
Oh, I think we can do that. When you start a live stream on YouTube, they say you can go for up to 8 hours. And I always took that as more of a challenge than anything. And I've hit the 8-hour mark several times, and it's decidedly disappointing. YouTube just says, your Hangout has ended okay. Not even a congratulations or great job doing an 8-hour live stream.
No fireworks.
They don't seem to, no fireworks, no animations, just nothing. But now we're joined by John Light, my friend from San Francisco. We used to hang out at the San Francisco Bitcoin meetup. We got Ryan behind the camera here, and me and John. It's a old home reunion here. People that used to go to the San Francisco Bitcoin meetup, but now are distributed all over the world. So, John, what have you been working on lately? What's going on? What brings you to Prague? You're far out from here.
Yeah, great question. So, of course, the Institute of Crypto Anarchy and Hackers Congress here.
That's right.
Great reason to come out here. Specifically, my colleague Luis Quende is going to be speaking later today about DAOs and how DAOs can bring about a new order.
Nice.
That's the theme of the conference this year is a new order.
Not just a good band, also the theme.
And so the kind of main two projects that I work on in the cryptocurrency space would be Aragon with Luis and team, and Bitseed, which is a project where we build and ship a full node, like plug and play full nodes to people all over the world.
Well, I know more about Bitseed, so I think I'll start there. You guys have, like you say, a plug and play Bitcoin full node. So for people that are looking to just plug something into their router, maybe you want to support the Bitcoin network, or maybe you're a merchant or a person that does a lot of transactions, or a trader, you want to send your transactions through your own node so you know that they're completed first, or you get some kind of advantage that way. What are the advantages to running a Bitseed full node?
Today, most people that I talk to who use Bitseed just use it to support the network. More advanced users will use it to pair with a wallet, a mobile wallet that supports, for example, connecting to a trusted node, or if they are familiar with the Linux command line, they might install like Electrum Personal Server and then connect it to their Electrum wallet.
Okay, so you could do it on the mobile wallet, it would go through the node. You could do it on another wallet, it would go through the node.
Yes, and in the case of Electrum Personal Server, Bitseed would actually be used as like a UTXO provider, so that instead of querying a third-party database like blockchain.info or OXT or some other third-party,
which could leave behind a record or maybe expose your privacy, something like that.
Yeah, basically every time your Bitcoin wallet queries a third-party server for its balances, you're essentially letting this service know, hey, I'm interested in all of these addresses, which would tell the server that all of these addresses are perhaps part of the same wallet. And if you're not using Tor or at least a VPN or something, then your IP address is also now associated with those addresses. So using your own full node as the UTXO provider instead of a third-party server is the most secure and the most private way to use Bitcoin today.
Great. And let's talk about the details of the full nodes. Do they have SegWit? Do they have BEC32 addresses? And then we'll get into Lightning.
Yeah, so they run the latest version of Bitcoin Core.
Great.
So all of the features that Bitcoin Core supports today are supported on the full node.
So version 17 already?
Yes.
Perfect. That was a fast upgrade. So how was your experience during the last bug, which was this emergency upgrade, right, to version 0.16.3? How did you handle this upgrading process for all the nodes?
Yeah, so we don't push updates to nodes, so it's an opt-in process for the users. We have, and same with communication for all of our users. They can opt into our newsletter to essentially receive either our regular announcements or, in the case of this kind of thing, an emergency kind of announcement that, hey, you know, there's a serious bug and you should upgrade. And so about a week after the patch was released, we sent out this message to everybody who's on our mailing list saying, you know, if you're running a full node right now, you need to update because you could be vulnerable to these DOS or inflation bug attacks. And other than that, it's kind of out of our hands because this is about, you know, self-sovereignty and autonomy, and so we don't force updates on users, but we do strongly suggest that in cases like this, you probably want to upgrade.
And the hardware of the Bitseed box, is it a Raspberry Pi? Does it have a hard drive? What kind of box is it?
Yeah, so we used to ship it with a single board computer called a PCduino Nano 3, which is very similar to a Raspberry Pi, but it has a native SATA connection, so you can connect it directly to a hard drive. Now we've since upgraded to a mini PC board, which has twice as much RAM, and so can support a lot more additional software. For example, in the future we might have an Electrum Personal Server, a Block Explorer, a Lightning node. There are a bunch of possibilities. Block Stack. There's a bunch of really cool software that people are building around Bitcoin that can offer additional services to full node users, so that people can get the most value out of their full nodes possible.
So I personally am running 2 Bitcoin full nodes. One is on a Raspberry Pi 3, the other one is on my phone. And so with the Raspberry Pi 3, it takes a long time for the initial sync and the initial verification. So how do you solve that problem?
Yeah, so I do want to emphasize that we used to ship it with a single board computer, similar in power and specs and stuff to a Raspberry Pi. Now it's a mini PC. It can actually sync from scratch within a reasonable amount of time because it's got 4 gigs of RAM.
How much is
Syncing from scratch, it would probably take about a week. It's like a low-end laptop or a desktop computer. So I know if you have a super high-end desktop computer, you can sync I think within like 48 hours or something, depending on how fast your internet connection is. But really the bottleneck these days is just CPU speeds. And so before, when we had the single board computer, we would actually preload the blockchain onto the devices, ship it. That is a point of trust in a way, but we always say this is open source software. You always have the option of syncing from scratch, wiping it clean if you want, and starting over. Just as a matter of convenience, if you trust us to load an accurate version of the blockchain, then you can get that initial sync, and once you receive it, you just basically sync the blocks since we packaged up the node and shipped it. So that most of our customers probably just did it that way, but because it's all open source software, it's running on Linux. People always have the freedom to do it themselves, and we encourage them to do that if they want to.
And you mentioned that you're working on adding a Lightning node. What's the progress on that? I know a lot of people want to get not just a Bitcoin node, but a Bitcoin and a Lightning node to support the new network. They could plug and play it. There's a lot of interest in that right now. How is that going?
Yeah, there is a lot of interest, and we've done a couple of polls on this over the past few months since LND was officially declared kind of ready for mainnet, basically it's still like extremely early days. I personally, and I would say we as a team, don't really feel comfortable shipping it with Lightning today. There's a lot to figure out still in terms of user experience and security and recovering from various kinds of failures, because there's a lot of critical data that Lightning nodes need to manage to keep states, the channels up to date. And so it's probably going to be at least a year or two, possibly, depending, just for the user experience to kind of level out and for us to have good answers to these security questions. There was a really great talk on the first day here about hardware wallets and Lightning nodes. I would feel a lot more comfortable shipping Lightning with Bitseed if we had a really great dedicated hardware device that could manage all those secrets and important information that Lightning needs to be secure.
And I'd say we had a similar conversation on Twitter recently with General Bytes. And I know everyone's in a big hurry to get these updates, and we all want the new software and these things, but safety and security is more important, and testing takes time. And General Bytes basically said they want to upgrade their ATMs to SegWit, Bec32, all of these new things, but they don't want to lose their customers' money. The same thing here. You don't want to crash their nodes. You don't want to have unintended consequences. People trust these things. They put their money in them. We have to go slow, and we have to be safe and test them, and that's part of building good software. We often talk about Bitcoin, that it's flying around the world nonstop, it's refueling mid-air, and that we never land the airplane. So if we add anything new to that airplane, we could screw up the balance, we could make it crash. That would be a big disaster, not just for Bitcoin, but for people that trust Bitcoin, that put their money in it. So I do applaud the slow and steady way, but I do know there's people out there and they want the new stuff. So we have to blend those two.
Exactly. And we've talked to Michael here on the show yesterday, and he's shown us his little computer with the was not a Raspberry Pi, was another chipset.
It was a small computer.
Yeah, small computer.
Nodal. Yeah.
The Nodal, exactly. And there was the Bitcoin full node and already a Lightning node. So there are ways of doing this, and this is, of course, early research and development, but do you already have a team working on that? Or yourself?
I played around with Lightning on the command line, and I mean, it's great software. It does what it does what's on the box. It's just in terms of creating a plug and play experience for the demographic that Bitseed is built for, where people feel like everything is kind of managed and taken care for them, at least in a way where the UX is something that, frankly, that I could use. I mean, the command line stuff, I just since starting Bitseed, I've just forced myself to learn Linux command line so that I can experiment with the cutting edge stuff. But for your average app person that's using like mobile apps and stuff, they want a nice GUI. Right. They want to feel like everything is just integrated and works really well. And I don't think Lightning's quite there yet. And again, just that the secret management and stuff is really important too. We've always kind of discouraged people from using hot wallets, and right now every Lightning node, to the best of my knowledge, is running on a hot wallet. And so it's changing the way that people are used to using Bitcoin, and it's just going to take time to build new good habits around this.
And now you also mentioned that you're working on another project, Aragon. What is that project about?
Yeah, so Aragon is building an app that makes it easy to create new decentralized organizations.
Okay.
That run on the blockchain.
Okay.
So people can, right now most people are used to using Bitcoin in an individual sense, where they are, controlling their own money. Sure. And kind of sovereign for themselves. But with DAOs, we now have the ability to create organizations that are sovereign and running on the blockchain as well. And with advanced scripting languages, such as the ones that Ethereum offers with Solidity, you can code very kind of complex rule sets about how the resources of an organization can be managed. And Aragon has basically done all of the hard work to create a secure infrastructure for that, and then we have an app with just friendly buttons and options that people can choose for selecting the parameters of their organization so that they can create their ideal decentralized organization.
So is this mainly for managing the finances, or is this for managing, say, like the structure of the company, or what kind of benefits would I get from putting my organization on Aragon?
I think Aragon is perhaps most useful for blockchain native organizations, okay, or at least digital native organizations, because there are still certainly a lot of challenges with entities that want to interact with the real world and like real property and stuff. So you can use Aragon to manage any kind of assets that are on the blockchain, okay, such as domain names or currencies, or potentially in the future securities, okay, and non-fungible tokens like CryptoKitties and stuff. Any kind of assets that the organization collectively owns, okay, that are stored on chain, and then Aragon empowers the users to set custom governance rules over how those assets can be managed. And you can set it up in such a way that you have like different departments that might have different levels of access to those resources. So maybe the board of directors has the power to move all of the money, but maybe the finance department only has the power to move like 1% per day or something like that. So it gets very granular in terms of the permissions that you can set within your organization.
Yes. And marketing can give out all the CryptoKitties.
Exactly. You give them the CryptoKitty vault.
There you go.
Yeah.
Good, Max.
And so the funny thing is that I tested out Aragon probably like a year and a half ago, and I didn't even know that you were involved until you just said that, so that was quite nice meeting you now. And already back then I realized that this is actually quite a useful service, because it gives, as you said, all these complex infrastructure that is not easy, right? It pushes that to the background, and it gives you on the user interface quite a simple way of managing this. And so multi-sigs are of course one part of this, but the problem of multi-sigs is that you have to recurrently, recycle keys and everything. And open source software like Thomas promotes it a lot, mistos.io is quite a nice way of doing that handily. So how do you handle the key management in this Aragon setup?
Mistos is great software. It's Bitcoin native, so a lot of the ways that they have built their software is structured around the way that you manage Bitcoin keys. Aragon specifically is built on Ethereum, and so there's a bit more flexibility in how you can manage membership of your organization. And so removing a member of an organization is just as easy as clicking a button. And depending on the rules again that you have set for the organization, that might require a vote of some sort to basically get the consent of all of the other members of the organization to remove that person. Or your organization might be coded in such a way that there's an executive or a human resources person of some sort that has the power to just remove someone from the organization, and it's just you broadcast the transaction, it gets mined in a block, and the person's no longer in the organization. So the key management is kind of pushed in terms of key management. That's like on the users to manage their keys, hopefully in a some sort of hardware wallet or other secure setup. But in terms of like on-chain management of accounts, it's very easy. It's just an update to the contract essentially.
And what kind of companies would use Aragon? Is it like for a company that meets all in one room, or is it a company, somebody's in Russia and in Germany and New York City? Is it more for distributed or more for locals?
It could be either, because both distributed companies as well as companies that work in the same physical location might have lots of, or just any kind amount of on-chain resources that they need to collectively manage.
Right. So if you had to run smart contracts, you need to store a bunch of ether, the programmers need access to it, you could give them access, that kind of thing?
Yeah, that kind of thing. One use case that I find really compelling is actually managing the upgradability of smart contracts in a way that is more decentralized than it's been traditionally managed. So in the Ethereum world, there's this concept of like an only owner contract, where basically you have one account, usually the programmer of the contract, that has the power to upgrade the contract if there's a bug. Of course, back before upgradable contracts became a thing, you couldn't even upgrade the contract, and you would end up with situations like the DAO, where there's a problem and you can't do anything about it except to hard fork the blockchain. Now we've gotten better. Contracts can be upgraded, but there's a governance question that comes into play, which is who has the power to upgrade the contract. Again, traditionally, the way that people would do this is to have this only owner setting, where the programmer of the contract had the power to push an update if they need to make a change of any kind or fix a bug. And now with Aragon, what you can do is you can add a better governance layer on top of upgradability, where you can say, actually you need to have 3 out of 5 people approve an upgrade. Or you could say, all of the users of this contract have to vote to approve an upgrade, or something like that. So that's one way that people are using Aragon, is to actually add governance to the upgradability of smart contracts on Ethereum.
And now, of course, Aragon is a right now Ethereum project, and we like Bitcoin, right? So what is missing in Bitcoin, and maybe how can we improve, or how can we adapt Bitcoin so that something like Aragon would be possible on Bitcoin?
That's a great question, and I don't know that we would need to have, say, main chain Bitcoin support, for example, Turing-complete smart contracts, where you can have these incredibly expressive, flexible ways of writing contracts with very granular details about how, in this application, you could run an organization. Perhaps something like Taproot or scriptless scripts, or any of the new kind of very expressive ways of writing smart contracts. There's like Simplicity. There's a few other like new, more advanced smart contracting languages that people are talking about implementing on Bitcoin. Maybe something like that could be used to create at least more advanced organizations than are just possible with multi-sig today. But even if you couldn't build an organization as expressive as an Aragon organization on the Bitcoin main chain, even with all of those changes, You could still perhaps do something like this with a sidechain like Rootstock, for example, or maybe a meta layer that's built on top of Bitcoin that is actually Turing complete if you want to go that far. So it's possible to do decentralized organizations as we can do with Aragon in Bitcoin. I'm just not sure that it would ever make sense or be possible even to do it on the main chain, and that might not be a problem either. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm about out of questions. Where can people learn more about Aragon and Bitseed? Yeah, these all sound good.
So our website for Bitseed is bitseed.org, and we have a Twitter account, bitseed.org. And for Aragon, it's aragon.org, and on Twitter, Aragon Project.
All right, thanks so much for joining us, John, and it's great to see you outside of San Francisco.
Yeah,
be sure to check out Prague. The old city is beautiful, and we've had amazing weather these last couple of days, so it's been really nice to be here.
Yeah, it's been great. Do you recommend any specific
well, I
sites to see
recommend
here?
Ubering directly to Prague Castle 1 or something. It drops you off at this bus station near the old church, and then you get to walk down the stairs rather than walking up the stairs. And from there, it's just a great tour, seeing kind of the old town hall. They have the astrological clock, is amazing. They restored it recently. And then the St. Charles Bridge with all the statues on it is really good. What I'd look for today is one of the statues has been sandblasted and looks brown and perhaps original. The others still have their black, sooty 100 years of dirt on them. They're doing a great job restoring and cleaning up the place. But I think it's going to look totally different, and I don't know if it should look old and black and sooty or new and brown and pretty. So
And that's the thing, right? When being dropped off by a car on the top of the mountain, you kind of cheat gravity.
that's right.
That's
it's a
nice.
big trick there, and Ubers are very cheap here. It's great to have Uber here, much better than Riga with the taxi drivers ripping us off every time we went somewhere. So
Nice pro tip. I appreciate that.
that's right. Thanks so
Well,
much, John.
Thanks for
Pleasure to
having
see
me
you.
on.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, John.
Bye, folks.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Let's not forget Ryan, who's right,
Yeah, I
right
know.
there behind
Let's
the camera.
get Ryan in here now. Are you ready, Ryan?
Yeah, I can do this.
Here we go. Thank you, John.
As long as the stream doesn't die while I'm done.
Well, let's hope that the stream survives.
Hey,
the
it's
director being off for a couple minutes.
Director, hardly. That's nice of you, though.
So we're joined by Ryan Taylor, AgiLeak on Twitter and on YouTube. Ryan started out broadcasting the San Francisco Bitcoin meetup. I think it was back in like 2013, maybe even 2012.
2014 was when I started doing that. So I was
nice.
thinking about this, and I think it was actually October. So we're about at the 4-year anniversary of this.
4-year anniversary, and then of course after you live streamed the meetup, I began live streaming the meetup when you moved on to Berlin and to the world, and you started live streaming other conferences, Linux conferences, open source conferences, mesh networks, all these kind of things. And first of all, where can people find that? Because we need more subscribers for Ryan, so tell them your YouTube channel.
Yeah, it's all on youtube.com/AgiLeak, ADJYLEAK. I do a lot of streaming for other channels as well. Certain conferences or meetups want to have their content on their own channel. I'm fine with that. And yeah, I mean, like you said, it's been everything from OpenWRT Summit to Battle Mesh, a lot of mesh network stuff. I'm really interested in all of that. A lot of cryptocurrency stuff. I got really jaded by the ICO bubble hype thing and the fact that I was live streaming some meetups, and all of a sudden I realized I'm making an advertisement for someone who's launching their bullshit ICO at the end of the month
right,
or whatever.
that's right.
So I kind of cut back on a lot of the cryptocurrency stuff, but this event is a very special event in cryptocurrency, in Bitcoin, and in Liberty.
And a lot of the stuff that Ryan's doing, if he didn't film it, it wouldn't be preserved. And so it's kind of a historical project where if you're interested in mesh networks, if you're interested in open source and freedom, these other ideas, you can go back and watch hours and hours of conferences. And if you're like Max, you can watch them on 2x speed. You can save yourself some time, even though we say no 2x. But it's a really great archive. It's a great resource, and it's a service to the community. And often people who provide services to the community are not appreciated. So I think we need to subscribe to Ryan's channel, donate to him on Twitter, follow him on Twitter, all these kind of things. We really need to support our Bitcoin community because if we don't do it, no one else is going to.
I'm actually push back. I do not think that you should check out his channel, because I saw him on the last video or last year at HCPP, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And then now this year I talked to Tom. I was like, oh, so is Ryan gonna be there again? I'm like, yeah, he did a bunch of other live streams again, and I was like, oh, cool. So what's his YouTube link? Tom sends me the YouTube link, and I'm like, oh no. Now I have to watch like a month worth of conferences that have been like accumulating over the last couple of years. So that is gonna take a lot of time away from me, and I do not appreciate it. You're stealing my time here. No, but all jokes aside, this is a great archive, and it truly is a history of Bitcoin and crypto conferences and decentralized conferences. So now for you doing this such a long time period, what have you learned?
Oh God, so much. I mean, really, for me, Bitcoin is about the people. It always has been, and I do the live streams of the presentations usually, of the talks, of the stuff where it's not really the reason that people go to conferences. Like I've come to find out, you go to conferences to meet people. You go for what we call the hallway track.
That's right.
And it's like these people sitting out here listening to us on the couch and having a great time, laughing at Theo dancing or whatever he's doing. And you don't really get that from my videos. We try to bring that to you a little bit more with this show, and I really like that. But yeah, but the thing that I've learned the most is that a lot of these Bitcoin people are just awesome. They're great people. They're great friends. I mean, like, we do this all for free, and
Yeah.
I think people don't realize that when we say we're bringing it to you for free, it's not that we're putting it on YouTube and it's free there. We don't get paid to be here.
Yeah.
We usually pay for our own travel. We usually pay for our own hotel rooms. And at the same time, I've been able to travel around the world. I've been able to meet amazing people, and I've had people save my ass in so many ways. Whether it's just meeting a Bitcoin trader at a train station because I don't have any money and I need to be able to pay for my hotel when I get there. That's literally happened in Munich. I was on the train looking at local trader on Mycelium, and I meet a guy, and by the time I'm off the train, he's at Starbucks ready to buy my Bitcoin so that I have some euros to pay for the hostel because I'm bad with fiat. But yeah, so the people have really just been amazing.
Yeah.
And so you do have a lot of amazing videos up for Bitcoin specific conferences, but as you said, also a lot of other stuff, mesh networks and privacy stuff, and just encryption and open source technologies. So how do you think can we make a unique symbiosis of all these different fields, and where is the advantage of combining these different areas?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, open source is kind of the thread that binds all of my videos together. It's really the heartbeat of this technology, and the communities that are doing it. These are communities that are self-starting, they're autonomous, and it's just people working on awesome projects. Seeing them converge would be really fascinating to me. I think we're starting to hear a little bit about that with like Gotenna. And the opportunity to be able to send, also with Samurai Wallet with their offline transactions and things, turning this peer-to-peer payment system into a true peer-to-peer payment system where you're not relying on the centralized infrastructure to be able to do these payments, or if it's not Bitcoin, then a messaging platform. Privacy is also a really big one, and I'm really a big pusher for PGP, for Signal. I would love to see privacy in Bitcoin, like strong privacy, and not this pseudonymity or whatever the hell.
Well, that's only good until you screw up, and everyone screws up, and you link your addresses together, and it's just a nightmare, and you blew it. And yeah, that's definitely one that, unlike we were saying yesterday, if you screw up on your VPN, you could fix it, or you could just keep hiding. If you screw up on your Bitcoin, you link it together on the blockchain, it's forever linked. They're always going to know what you have or what you had. So yeah, it's definitely a feature that needs to be improved, but you can understand why they would build it the way they did, building it in the open first, getting all the bugs out, and then fixing the scaling, and then hopefully, like you're saying, fixing the privacy and the fungibility.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard enough to convince people that Bitcoin is a good idea for them. I've pushed to merchants, to hostel owners, to bar owners, and whoever else, and getting them to accept this new kind of money that's just math that they don't understand is really hard. Now, if you add total privacy to that. If you add zero knowledge proofs or ring CT or whatever it is, then now we have this whole other thing to explain to people, and immediately people are going to go to black market. Immediately people are going to go to, well, ISIS is using it or whatever. And those are unfounded rumors in almost every case.
Yep.
And so yeah, I think it is good that we're building it in the open. We're getting people to understand the technology one piece at a time, and we'll get there.
Now, yesterday we talked to Jorg from Room 77 in Berlin, and he talked about how his bar takes Bitcoin, and for a while there he had the whole street taking Bitcoin. I was wondering, is there any great Bitcoin events or activities or something that happened in Berlin that you'd like to tell people about?
Yeah, I mean, Berlin is just a great spot for technology in general right now. The city itself is doing a big push to become Silicon Alley. It's like the German version of Silicon Valley. And
Sure.
I guess a lot of cities are trying to do that. They want to be the blockchain hub of wherever the hell. So, I mean, there's a lot of Ethereum stuff happening in Berlin. There's just tons of events. It seems like every project started having their own meetup. So there was the blockchain meetup in Berlin, and I was live streaming that for a while, and that was put on by the Epicenter. DJs, MCs, I don't know, podcasters, I'm not sure what you're called.
Podcasters.
Yeah, and then, but that started getting kind of fragmented because people would just have their own meetups. And so now you have every single project having a meetup, and we just had Blockchain Week there a few weeks ago.
Great.
And I didn't even get out to any of the events. I think I went to one thing, I went to the Zero Knowledge Summit, which was really good. But then I have work to do. And we all have jobs and stuff like that, and it makes it hard to get out to all of these events. But it really just depends on what your taste is, really. I mean, are you looking for Ethereum? You can find it there. Are you looking for Bitcoin? You can definitely find it there. Room 77 is where it's at, man.
That's right.
Jorg is a great guy, and that restaurant is amazing. Their food, their burgers. I eat there all the time.
And
but
you
then,
pay in Bitcoin, yeah.
Yeah, you can. If you have some and you're willing to spend it. But next, I think it's in 2 weeks, there's going to be an event called Radical Networks that should be really, really neat. It's more about the network protocol side of things. I don't expect there to be too much cryptocurrency talk or blockchain talk going on, which is kind of nice to get away from that sometimes. But probably mesh networking stuff, some mixed nets, some Tor, some of that going on.
Well, and the space did really used to be very small, and you could go just to the Bitcoin meetup and you'd see everyone there, and we're all working on our projects. The space has gotten really big and blown out to all these different things, and certain companies have marketing money and they can buy the hype, and all this is happening. But this is a good thing, right? This is, we're losing the small community, but we're gaining a much larger community, and this is how things grow. And this is an example of Bitcoin, blockchain, Ethereum, all these other projects being successful, that so many people want to be in them, they want to have meetups about them, they want to talk about them. It's frustrating to lose the old small community where everyone knew your name, but it's exciting to have this new community as well. Right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the underground diehard in me wanted it to stay as our little small community. I've met great people at the beginning, and we're still all friends.
Yeah.
So that's super nice.
I know.
But if this thing is gonna succeed, if this is gonna win, we're almost 10 years on, and the network's still running. People are still using it for all sorts of reasons. Amazing ideas are coming out, and if all of that's gonna happen, then yeah, the community is gonna grow, and it's gonna grow and continue to, and you're gonna have a bunch of people like diverging ideas. In the beginning, it was a lot of ideological connection, and so when you met someone who knew about Bitcoin, the chances were they're more on the libertarian side, the crypto-anarchist side. You have liberty to talk about. You have these other things to talk about that you can assume you automatically have in common. Lately, that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah.
You have Microsoft involved. And I was at a conference in Berlin a while back, and talking to a friend of mine. We're standing in the lunch line, and in the middle of the conversation, he turns around and looks at the badge of the guy behind him and goes, "Microsoft, what the fuck are you doing here?"
That's the usual Bitcoin greeting. That's what you get from people.
Yeah.
So yeah, you bring up a great point, and I think that's a inherent dilemma between reaching mass adoption and kind of diluting the true ethics and values of the underlying fundamental movement. So do you think that we can reach a point of mass adoption while still retaining these radically ideas of freedom and individual sovereignty?
I consider mass adoption to be kind of Moby Dick. I think that we can find it if we, even if we don't try to chase it, if this just keeps going. I mean, look at the World Wide Web or email as classic examples.
Yeah.
Became ubiquitous despite the public fighting it or people just not caring, people not wanting to care. So I think that it's going to happen. I don't think we necessarily need to push it, and if we do chase it, then there's risk of total disaster because you end up with these scams, you end up with people losing a lot of money and they have no idea what they're doing.
Right.
And as someone who's been in this space for so long and paid attention to it and studied it, and doing a transaction on a command line, not a problem. So I tend to forget that for someone else, there's so many ways that you can lose your Bitcoin.
Sure.
And then on top of that, that's just technically, on top of that, now you have the scammers, the ransomware, all of this other stuff that I still think it's too soon.
Well, and you also have actual real life ransoms. We were talking to our friend who has an ATM in his shop, and I tell this story often, but I think it's very important. People call up these people and say, hey, we're from the tax thing and you have to pay now. And everyone doesn't do their taxes, right? Or they say, hey, they've kidnapped your brother or something like that, something horrible. And then they get you to put this money into the ATM to send them the Bitcoin, which is one way, and you have no way of reversing it, and you don't really know that the person's gone, you don't really know that the taxes are a problem, but these people are paying. And this is just the beginning of this. This is the less than 1% part of this. It's going to go up. There's going to be more scammers, both overt, people stealing from you, and people starting companies that are questionable, projects that are questionable. Everybody gets into the space. They want to print their own money, or they want to attach a centralized institution to Bitcoin. And all of those are wrong and not the right way to go. But what do you think? Are there going to be more scams? Or?
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. And I mean, I think that the scams are going to happen more rapidly when it's hard because I consider myself to be sort of I don't like the term, but the evangelist of Bitcoin. I go around to merchants, I try to get them to accept it and things like that. I talk to people about it when I have the energy to. And but at the same time, I think that what's the best way to grow a forest? Do you go and you take a bunch of trees from one place and put them in the ground where you want them to be, or do you let nature do its thing?
Right.
And that's basically with this network, we're building a forest, and it's best to let it happen organically. It's best to let it happen naturally because otherwise you end up with, the Zcash pun, you end up with saplings not getting enough sunlight.
I absolutely agree that this is a natural organism, so to say, and it's going to morph into the places that it is supposed to morph into. But how much can we kind of support it in that way? Maybe add some artificial sunlight that might just increase the speed of the sapling growing into a full tree, or should we just completely be like laissez-faire? Well, this is somehow going to work out, and we do not need to support it actively.
I think we do need to support it through information. And you and I were talking about the spreading of information. And information, there's this old saying, information is meant to be free. And we're doing so much of this. You're doing it with World Crypto Network. I'm trying to do it with my live streams. Max is doing a great job joining World Crypto Network now. And I think we need to keep doing that because we need education. We need to be sharing these videos. Everyone who's watching, share it, tell people about it because there's some great information happening here and not everyone can be here. There are kids who can't afford to travel here. The tickets are expensive. There's adults who can't afford to travel here.
Right.
But the information is key and we can't have these noobs coming into the ecosystem and not having any information other than what they're hearing on Twitter or what they're finding out from the Poloniex troll box, which luckily isn't a thing anymore, but people were actually getting information from there.
Sure, people would say, sell, 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 and you would sell, or they'd say, I heard a good thing about this so-and-so a coin or that so-and-so a coin, and you're right there, having that troll box right next to the place where you make your orders, I thought was always a bad idea and always dangerous because you're in a very emotional state when you're trading, and you're like, I don't know if it's up or down, and sure, I have some money, and then I have a little more, maybe I have a little less, and this guy says this, and you don't know who he is, and maybe 10 other fake people are backing him up. Oh, I love the new blah blah coin. Oh, blah blah coin, I made $1 million on that yesterday, and to have that kind of ridiculous unsourced information right next to the box where you handle your money was always a threat, was always a danger. And there's probably still a few more sites that have it. BTCE is gone, Crypt's gone, all these things. But maybe Coinbase, maybe they're developing a troll box. Great new innovation. I heard they developed a online voting poll where you can vote what new altcoin should be on Coinbase. Revolutionary new technology they had on Cryptsy 4 years ago.
Which blockchain are you? Answering 25 questions.
Yeah.
Little
Fill out the
Cosmo polls.
form. Yeah, on and on. But yes, there's so much bad information, there's so much misinformation, and then there's people that think they know what they're talking about, and maybe you're well-meaning, but no one has a crystal ball. No one knows if it's going up or down. They draw the lines on the charts, and they do their magic, and then they come up with woof, and your money's gone. And your money's gone, and it's gone. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that, there aren't really any filters on any of this. So
Yeah.
you need to find your own filters. You need to find people that you trust, whether they have a show like yours, whether they have a podcast, or if it's someone like Andreas that you see on stage. And I always point people straight to Andreas when they're coming new because
It is
his information
really
is
amazing,
on
yeah.
point. He doesn't talk about these charts. He doesn't try to predict why the price
No.
is doing what it's doing. That's not the point of all of this. The point is the technology. It's the open source. It's the open information, the sharing of all of this. So find your filters, share this, be someone's filter. And if you see someone who is getting into this industry or getting into the market and seems to be going in the wrong direction, like they're asking you questions like, do you have information on EOS or SIA or whatever else? I could go on. If someone comes to you and they ask you for news about something that you know is a scam, or it's just you know that it's not, there's not enough information out there about it, then help guide them in a good direction.
And we have Nico from Consensus and also WCM a bit in the chat saying that friends don't let friends get into shitcoins. And that is absolutely right. This is a completely new field and we have no clue what we're doing, right? We're like stabbing in the dark because these are uncharted territories. And there will be many mistakes made, right? And we need to make sure that these mistakes, first of all, that we try to prevent it, and then when we make them by accident, that we are sure that the effects are minimized. Trying to prevent these mistakes is something of real value. So if you know someone who is like, oh, XRP is gonna go to 100 euros per coin, tell them like, no. and
maybe.
And linked into the interview of Peter Todd on WCN with the in-depth discussion on why XRP is such a shit token on many separate layers. And this is kind of like your responsibility to point them out to the good content, to the good information, so that they can try to understand it. And sharing the information is all that we can do. We cannot make them understand it, right?
Yeah, be a good peer.
Yeah.
Basically, don't be a malicious node.
There you go. Act, golden rule, treat others how you would want to be treated. Let them have a chance, let them learn their lessons. Try to tell them not to invest what they can't afford to lose, maybe to go 70-30, 50-50, 90-10. Don't sell it all, don't buy it all.
Yeah, all those things that we don't actually
All those things that we don't do, dollar cost averaging, buying it slowly, not freaking out when it goes down, not holding forever when it goes up. All the things that are impossible to do, that are easy to say, but impossible to do. Earlier on, Ryan, we were talking about Alexandria, and I know you were an early supporter of that project, and I wanted to give you a chance maybe to just tell us again what they do and to remind people that they are still working on their project.
Yeah, they are still working on their project, and they're one of the rare projects in the space that don't believe in hype. They won't hype their thing until they're done with it, and there are some perfectionists on the crew. So they're basically what Alexandria is, and it's kind of morphed a bit, but the idea was distributed media sharing using blockchain for metadata that allows for searching and finding of media that is hosted on IPFS or BitTorrent or any other decentralized hash table storage network. And so it was working, and it was rough. I helped build the front end app for that, and but we did have proof of concept, and we were getting some people publishing things on there. They have they're in the process of rebuilding the front end, the publishing and the browsing aspect of it, which is taking a long time because they're doing a good job of it.
Sure.
They do have a summit, I believe, every year in San Diego, so they just did that. There's some videos online. And what's kind of sprung out of this is what they're calling the Open Index Protocol, and that's the back end protocol aspect of it, and the schema of how things are published and how things are found, and how people are paid for sharing content as well as publishing it, and so that's what Open Index Protocol is, and then Alexandria will continue forward as sort of the first market maker in this ecosystem.
That sounds great, and people can just Google the Alexandria project. Where can they find
It's
out more?
alexandria.io, which because of the lack of hype, hasn't been updated in quite a while.
Right.
At Alexandria on Twitter, and that's probably the best place to look on Twitter. And then if you look for Alexandria, is hard because it's like I named it, so I'm kind of like, I love the name, but it's a bit difficult to be able to search for. But yeah, check out the Twitter. For sure.
It's tough. You might have to add a word on there, digital Alexandria or some kind of
they
modifier.
were calling it the Decentralized Library of Alexandria.
That's
but,
really long.
El Deuterino is just
if you're not into the whole brevity thing. Yeah.
Well, are you gonna fork it off for like Alexandria Cash or something, or Alexandria Decentralized or something? That might be nice.
Alexandria 2.
No spoilers.
Well, very cool, Ryan. It's been great having you on here, and you do so much work for the community, and I don't think you get near enough credit or enough views on all these things. If you're into decentralization, mesh networks, open source technology, be sure to check out Ryan's YouTube channel and his Twitter. Say it one more time for him.
Adjyleak, ADJYLEAK.
Great. Thank you so much, Ryan, and thank you so much for
Tom.
helping us. This live stream is possible because of Ryan, so
It's a
thank you
pleasure.
so
It's always
much.
good to see you too.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yes, and it really is a understatement to say how important the technical stuff is as well, right? Because we just talk, like all this camera, microphone, live stream, black magic. No clue how it works. I just take the microphone and smile for the camera, right? But it's good to have specialization and support from the different parts of the community. So absolutely.
And when this goes right, we make it look easy. When it goes wrong, it's that trial and error and doing it hundreds of times that prepares you for that. But we're ready for the next guest. Go ahead and bring them in.
Oh, and I'm really excited for the next guest, and we've been teasing it a little bit already. But we're joined by Todd Weaver. Come on here.
What's up?
Hello, Todd. Nice to meet you. I'm
Nice to
Tom.
meet you. Hi, Tom.
Nice to meet you. And you know Max?
I don't know Max, but I know Max. Yeah, I'm kidding.
Well, Todd, you're of course the founder of the Purism laptop and open source hardware and software line, and we already talked on the WCN. So how are you doing? How do you like the conference?
Yeah, it's a great conference so far. Actually, was here all day yesterday and found it fantastic. What's cool is the credibility of all the speakers and having people who are from the community doing a lot of the talking. I think is really great, and so that's something that I've enjoyed.
So we've been talking about the Purism laptop and how it's open source hardware and hardware we can trust, and especially some of the features, like it has an on-off switch for the camera that's not just a software switch or trust the Macintosh, but an actual like some kind of physical hardware thing where the electrons cannot jump over the gap, and like once you turn it off, it's really off. What can you tell us about even just the basics of Purism?
Well, I think you just pretty much nailed the hardware kill switch,
Nice.
which is actually severing the electrical circuit for components. So on the Librem 5 phone that's coming out in April is going to be a physical switch that severs the baseband. So you can actually just simply toggle off the ISP from your device. And so by having that proper isolation between the CPU and the cellular provider, it means that then you can have proper security story. And then we also have it for the Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and then camera microphone combination. And so by being able to physically sever the circuit, then it just sort of gives you that extra confirmation that nothing can happen. Now, of course, we also run software that is all free software, so there's no binaries at all in the software that can be loaded by remote, or any software update can never load anything that isn't free software. And then leveraging things that are like reproducible builds, which will allow for us to release all of our reproducible build hashes, and then have someone, because we're a Free Software Foundation endorsed on our distribution Pure OS, then that could be reproducibly built by Free Software Foundation, or you as an individual, or any third party. And so then reproducible builds gets us to where you can actually confirm that the software hasn't been maliciously tampered on the version you have. So we have the complete stack from releasing the schematics on the phone side to confirming that that hardware is truly what it's supposed to be, and then having a complete freed software stack. That means then we have a solid foundation for anything else to build on.
And that really is a great endorsement from the Free Software Foundation. Richard Stallman, pretty much the inventor of Linux and of open source, a lot of the ideas behind it, is a famous hardliner. He will not use systems that are not open source. He won't use hardware or software that's not open source. To see him and the foundation support your project is really an impressive honor.
And I have to say, just a little tidbit, that we usually do these streams, of course, on YouTube, and thus we use Google Hangouts, right? And so when I wanted to have Todd on the show, I was like, we're just going to use Google Hangouts, and he's like, well, we could, but I don't have a Google account. And I mean, it would be a hassle to create a sock puppet account just for this one-off thing. So why not use Jitsi, a open source streaming platform? And so Todd is clearly just as hardline, and he's like, no, I'm not going to use these types of software. I'm just going to use Libre software. How much of a hardliner are you in that aspect?
Oh, I'm a hardliner. Now, if you're talking about the ultimate hardliner of Richard Stallman, there are areas that I think I would be willing to lose a battle to sort of win the overall war.
Sure.
But besides those minor areas, the fact is Richard Stallman has had 35 years of being right.
Right, absolutely.
So you have to respect that.
Definitely.
And I use and promote products that are ethical because it actually creates an ethical society. And so I take a hardline approach to that. As a matter of fact, I think I was just asked what my Twitter handle was, and I said, I don't have one of those. I don't want one of those. But however, our company does, and the reason is because we have to bridge the gap from the utopia that I live in and the dystopia that society lives in, and we need to bring people over. So we have to build those bridges, and so having those bridges means having a Twitter account that can tell people about it, and having a Facebook account that can tell people about why they need to not use it any longer. But I personally do not have them, nor have I ever. So I'm that hardline approach. I host my own email servers. I build everything from scratch. And so what I realized was that, for me personally, I'm willing to inconvenience myself to retain control. And then having 2 daughters, I realized, wait, I need to change society for the better, because in the future, it's going to be convenience that ends up removing the digital civil rights that we have. And we've already seen this. So that's where we decided to say, we can actually solve that problem by actually making things that are convenient and retain you as an individual's control. And so we decouple the issue of having convenience that controls you, right? So, which is what all big tech does, right? So big tech is all about maximizing profit. It's a systemic issue that they have.
Sure.
And that's one of the reasons we solved the systemic issue by forming as a social purpose corporation. And what that really means is that we advance our social purpose over maximizing profit. And then that means that everybody involved, our board of directors, shareholders, me, executives, all of staff, understand that every decision we're making has to advance social purpose and social good. And having that be a systemic understanding within the organization makes it where just amazing things are happening. And so the other really important piece is that we only charge for the things people understand they have to pay for, right? So hardware is obviously one of them. And so so by charging for what people are willing to pay for, then we can use that leverage and influence change where change has never been before. And then as we grow, which we are growing very rapidly, then we can influence change in all sorts of other ways as well. So such as we're coming out with our phone next year. Next year in 2019, we're also going to be announcing a product called Liberty, which is actually going to be services. And those services are going to adhere to a very strict guidelines of ethics. So that's like, chat. So you can think of it like what we would compete with, right? It would be Twitter, Facebook, Skype,
Sure.
WhatsApp. right? Facebook Messenger, all that garbage, right? So, and what we're going to do is have it be where it's decentralized, right? And use end-to-end encryption that the user controls the keys as opposed to the corporation. So there's a lot of things that are in the works, but being able to grow and advance those causes is an extremely exciting thing for our entire team.
Well, it sounds fantastic to have a philosophical core at the center of your company and have a reason for doing things other than just profit. I know Google famously had the "Don't be evil" slogan, which I always took as do everything right up until the point of evil, which gives you a lot of groundwork to work with. Like when they launched Gmail and they said, well, it's not evil to read your email and to put ads in there. Yeah. And some people said, that's incredibly evil. But they're like, no, it's like really close to evil, but not quite there. So.
And you know, they actually removed that slogan.
Oh yeah, I know. It's
Right?
like
So,
be good now or something.
Yeah.
I don't
So,
really believe them when they say it.
Yeah, right, of course, we're happy to. But so that's where but at the heart of it is actually, and I just gave a talk on this subject, which is that it's for C corps, right? So corporations within the U.S.
Yes.
They have to legally maximize shareholder value, which
Sure.
means that at all costs that are legal. Now, currently, we have no digital civil rights, so they can just tromp all over the top of them. Right? And so and that's legal to do so. So this is where we need to advance both advocacy, but also regulatory, and saying, hey, you know what, we should advance the rights that we'd like to see as society in the digital world. And then we can also solve it by, switching to use products that are ethical. But it actually isn't an issue of, do you have anything to hide? Like, that's never been really the issue. It's always been for me is a digital civil rights issue, which is to say that these huge C corps, by their definition, because there's no regulation otherwise, can exploit society for their gain. And so what we need to say, hey, you know what, there's actually different choices, and let's actually promote those choices. But let's also actually try to write the rules that we would like to see in a digital society. And then what will happen is if those regulations can actually be indoctrinated, then we can see the change and move in that direction. So it's taking it to the heart of, it's a digital civil rights issue as opposed to like, do you have, you want to hide your picture? It has, it's a much bigger issue than what is sort of being spread around.
And certainly when the original corporations were founded by the Dutch, they were chartered to serve the state, to open up trade routes to India, to bring back spices for the good of the people. And that we've completely lost these ideas, as you say. It's entirely about the profit motive. It's entirely about getting more and turning eyeballs into money the way that Facebook did, building the social network, adding in the ads, making it friendly for the advertisers to get all of your information. And that now we're at this point where people don't even understand the values of privacy or understand what they've given up. Adolfo Linares spoke earlier. As he's a lawyer, he worked with the Panama Papers. He's here at the convention somewhere. I'd like to get him on here. But he spoke about how his kids are just sharing everything on Instagram and Facebook, and they don't even have the concept of what privacy is or why privacy is important. And this is probably why we're losing it and why it's going away, because people don't know that we fought for this, and that we, all these different sit-ins and all these different people giving up their lives, giving up their time, their energy to get us this privacy, and that we're just going to give it away. So someone said that we've given up all of their privacy so that we can share photos, and that sharing photos is not necessary to give up all your privacy. But somehow Facebook convinced us all, and Instagram, that it was a good deal of all of your privacy and your friends get to see your vacation photos. It's just a bad trade-off.
And dick pics.
And
don't forget the dick pics.
So many. So.
Yeah, there's you're touching on a lot, and I appreciate the fact that you have a history and understanding sort of the corporate structure. So one of the important things to note is that corporations in the physical world have centuries of precedent that they have been following, right? So they're not going to murder somebody, right, that we know of. So what will happen in the digital world is there's no rights. So they can completely exploit and enslave individuals and their data for their gain. And so this is why it's important to actually bring awareness that to policymakers, to people, is saying this is actually a digital civil rights issue. It's not something that's just minor that you should just sort of like care about. It's a giant problem. And so how do we end up addressing that? We have to solve the systemic issues, and then actually, so Purism is looking to solve it as putting out product that's convenient, that allows you to control your own life, and then also an activist, so we can talk about these issues that I'm doing here. and then also regulatory, right? So actually bringing the awareness that, hey, these are important issues for society. And I think that what's really great is that the erosion of trust of big tech is already well on the way to collapse, right? Of
Absolutely.
Big tech. And so the good news is that the awareness is there, right? People just can't wholeheartedly trust any big tech company. I don't know of actually anybody who does. There are people who still use those services because they're convenient, but the actual erosion of trust is already well underway.
Well,
And so what we need is we need to have convenient products that follow that to say, hey, just switch to this. So we can have a giant switch campaign as opposed to like a delete Facebook campaign, which doesn't really solve the problem. We need to switch to something that's actually ethical.
Yeah. And now, just recently, there was this publication that in China they had a teeny tiny little chip that they introduced.
I
in
knew
all
we
the
were going to go
grammars.
there. Yeah, that's a big story.
And of course that is a huge issue because there's pretty much almost no way that to really verify that there are no tamperings like this in the chip. So is open sourcing the hardware and the chipset one step, and is it enough? And what can we do to defend against this?
Yeah, so a few things. By releasing the schematics and then confirming the hardware after the fact, right, then you can actually verify the hardware the same way you can verify like reproducible builds within software. So that is an important step. So our phone is actually going to be the first product that Purism puts out where we can release the schematics, and because it's not copyright encumbered, so just like Intel reference designs are for laptops. And so we can actually solve that problem. So then what you get is to then you say, well, were you know, was an individual specifically targeted, and then they had some modification. And we even have a solution around that with the Librem key that can sign the device on the key and then ship you the key and then ship you the phone separate, and you can plug it in. A green light means hasn't been tampered with, not a single bit. And then we can also support anti-interdiction, which means that we can ship the package in something that's uniquely signed. And so then we can completely remove all of those pieces. The other piece that's important on the phone side is that we don't have to manufacture it out of Dongguan, China, right? So not manufactured out of anywhere within China even. And so that as an option allows us to then say, you know, would it be worthwhile to manufacture it? Because I want to import one important point. Is that manufacturing in China, when you're talking about component parts, PCBs, et cetera, it's actually machine versus machine. So any country that has the same machine that we would run the fab line on, it's the same price, right? So it's the extra manual labor processes that are the reason why so much is moved to China. And so we have the choice, because ours is a complete fab run to the end, that we can fabricate it anywhere. So we're considering fabricating it in the US or in Germany and a few other places, actually, even Switzerland. And then we can still, if we opt to, right, fabricate parts of it out of China if we want. So by having complete control of the supply chain, then we can look at those things differently than anybody else has ever been able to.
And I talked to Peter Todd yesterday about this exact same issue,
Yes.
and we like to talk about space pirates and mining at black holes, so we get out there, and his idea was maybe 3D printing the parts of the chipset, which will of course decentralize the production right to an individual level. So is that something that you're looking into, and how likely is it?
Well, it's likely, but it's also likely with a delay. So the important piece about 3D printing, or let's say if you're going to fabricate a phone yourself, right, is that the schematics don't get you there. It's actually called Gerber files, and so those are files that allow you to fabricate a device. And so we are not going to be releasing the Gerber files day one, and for a pretty simple reason, is because then other people would be able to fabricate a line and directly sell for none of the investment that we put in, right? So they can just take the Gerber files and fabricate something. So we are thinking about having like a time capsule related to the release of those documents, right? So which could be, you know, I don't know, 3 years, 5 years, or something like that. Which means that in that period of time, then you'd be able to fabricate an older version. And so then that still gets us the leverage that we need to influence change for the better. And I think that that's a fair trade-off to get there. Because it really comes down to, you know, if we were to just release it where someone else can just fabricate, then we face a much bigger problem, which is, oh, we just did all this effort and we can't get a return on the investment that we've made on development, hardware, and everything else. So that's at least how we've rationalize that approach to try to figure out what model could work.
I once tried to get all of my friends to encrypt their email, and I wrote a help file, and I had step-by-step diagrams with cartoons and jokes and everything. And what happened to me is that all my friends stopped emailing me. So how can we get people to value their privacy?
That sounds like a benefit.
Well, it was
I'm
actually
kidding,
pretty
I'm kidding.
good. Email's gotten worse and worse these days. But how can we get people to actually value their privacy and to make these good choices and to move in this direction?
Well, it's all about convenience versus control. So historically, it has been where big tech, the reason that they end up dominating is because it's convenient and they retain control. And so you have to give up your control to use these services. So what I believe is we can have convenience and control. And so as an example, because you brought up email, like we partnered with Werner Koch, who was one of the creators of GPG encryption. And what we're doing is we are bundling that. So this is, you can imagine if I can hand you a phone.
Sure.
And it already has, you can just register an account and it generates everything for you. This is for the average user, right? Generates everything for you. And then you can just simply email you. And the actual, through a web directory lookup, pull in your public key and do an email encryption. So there's actually no setup, right? So the barrier to send an encrypted email is exactly the same barrier as just registering for an email account. That is where we're going. And it'll take a little bit of time to get there, but I mean, we're not talking about a decade. We're talking about maybe a year. And so then what you can do is have somebody go just register for an account that uses a web directory, and then you can immediately they'll just be sending encrypted email. They don't even know, right? And then they'll just realize, wow, this is awesome. I'm sending encrypted email and and it's just working. The people who are going to care, can generate their own keys or go through the extra steps that they may want to, but we need to make products that are convenient and retain control for individuals, and that comes down to respecting their digital civil rights.
I think that's right. And you remind me a lot of my friend JJ, who's very into open source. He uses only the command line. He's got about 4 terminal windows open at all time. He won't watch Netflix because it's not open source. I think they used a Microsoft plugin at some point. And what would the interface of Purism be like? Is it a command line? Is it confusing? Or is it more aimed at normal users?
Yeah, it's very much normal users, yes. Because again, back to convenience, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, there's no terminal, right?
Good, sure.
By default, you can certainly go if you
hunt
it's
there,
down and
it's
operate
there,
it, but it's a very we partner with GNOME Foundation, and they have been it's like awesome, right? It's amazing, and so it's very easy to use.
Building,
and then on our phone, we've also because our phone's not Android or iOS.
Okay.
Right. Our phone is going to be GNOME.
Okay.
And so GNOME running within PureOS. Now, what that means is, and we have a bunch of GNOME designers on our team, and so we are making sure that it is very easy.
Great.
The other piece, because of this combined bundle, right? We do hardware, which is the Librem line.
Yeah.
We do PureOS and all the software applications that go in that, and then we have what we're upcoming right before our phone ships, what we call Liberty, which is actually ethical services. And so what you can actually have is when you purchase a phone, let's say you purchase a phone for one of your family members.
Sure.
Or one of your friends who doesn't email you anymore. Right?
Maybe I can get them back.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Then you can hand them a phone, and they can register with an email account, and then all of the applications that are ethical light up, and they can just start using it with applications that are very much mobile friendly, right? So on-screen keyboard, same icon, similar, usability of those things. The area that I think is important to note, though, is applications, right? So in the, you may have 10 apps that you use.
Sure.
And someone else may have a different 10 apps that they use, but the app store is going to be, tens of thousands of applications. And ours, because we are so rooted in ethics, that we're only going to allow free software-based applications in our app store.
Fantastic.
So what that means is that when you're downloading something from there, it's still protecting you.
Right.
But that also means that if you're wanting to use a ride-sharing application, because what the ride-sharing application is not going to be free software, it's not going to respect your rights, it's going to mine all of your data, then you can't. Now, until they realize that there's enough user base and we have gained leverage, and maybe they
Sure.
would write an ethical one. So, and so then but of course there's going to be a web browser, right? So you can do a lot with a browser. So we're planning to ship with a minimum of 5 applications that are the core of communication, right? So you can make a phone call, you can send text messages.
Great.
You can check your email, you can browse the web, and you can have encrypted communication.
Cool.
And so with that combination, you can do an awful lot with the phone, and we can just hand it to people saying, hey, this is your phone that you can use for, that respects your rights. And then as more and more applications come out, right, which we're shipping 300 developer kits this month, and that means that, there'll be active development. So what you can see is that the momentum is there. And when you have momentum, then that you can actually influence change. And so it's not something that day one, 5 apps, and then 6 months later it'll be 5 apps. It's going to be many, many, many more.
And so will these apps only be available for Purism hardware, or is this something that everyone can use regardless of their hardware?
So all of the software we use, we always push upstream. So in the case of PureOS, we push that upstream to Debian. If it's GNOME, then we push that upstream to GNOME. If it's KDE, then we push upstream to KDE. And so having those partnerships allows us to make sure that we're moving this forward in an ethical way across devices. Now granted, our phone will be the first phone to run it, but that doesn't mean that somebody couldn't port it and then maybe taint the kernel to run on any Android device. Now it doesn't get you the same level of protection and security, but it's at least a means of getting more users, right, to then use the system or install applications that are ethical. And so and then it also makes it where an individual has the choice, right, of what they'd like to do. And I think those are all important things to advance.
Now, you mentioned earlier that we don't have like an Internet Bill of Rights or an International Privacy Bill of Rights, and I've noticed this a lot in the media recently. We talk a lot about certain countries perhaps hacking the American election, and we just don't have the same kind of rules. If you send a soldier over a line, clearly that's an act of war, but if you send a cyber soldier over a line, we don't know how to punish you, and if you steal someone's data, we don't know how to punish you. What can we do to kind of further this understanding and to move everyone towards a privacy bill of rights and to have the same kind of laws we have in the meat space in the cyberspace?
Yeah, so there's a couple of points. There's actually a great book called Binary Bullets that's actually sort of touching on this sort of cyber warfare aspect of things, because you brought that specific example up. And then there is what we're advancing is an area that we call purist standard, which is basically in the online world what should be the Bill of Rights. And there was actually recently, Tim Berners-Lee also came out with a list of 10. We think we can boil it down to 5, which we did. So we're advancing that same cause. And so you think about it with Purism, we solve it on the market side, which means giving a choice to people.
Exactly, where there previously was none.
Yes.
I mean, Apple, Macintosh, Android, Linux, and these are great things, and they help me edit videos, they help me do things, but I know that I don't have any privacy there.
That's right. So in the solving it on the market side, and then also being an activist allows us to basically bring awareness to these issues.
Yeah.
But then that last bit, which we're going to be doing more of, is the policy, right? So actually influencing with policymakers. And so then at least our voice can be heard, which means then we could potentially be writing rules that are actually benefiting society as opposed to benefiting big tech.
And so, of course, you said that you're activists upon others, and that you do also want to manifest political change. So where's your focus here? How much do you focus on building stuff and agorism, right, counter economics, and how much do you focus on politics?
That's a great question. I think it comes and goes. So there's times where it can be more than full-time focused on hardware manufacturing, or trying to pool together a team to focus on certain applications we're looking to advance. But then other times, which is really around the schedule within the political landscape, meaning a meeting scheduled, and it's like, okay, well then let's set aside time to prepare and then attend that meeting and try to advance that cause. So I think it's probably I'm going to say in 2019, it might be 15% of my time on political activism, and then another maybe 20% of my time on actual just activism and building awareness, such as coming to this conference. And then the rest of the time is making sure that we're on the path to this larger vision within the organization. And it's great. Because we have a team that's so dedicated to the cause, that it makes it very, very easy to manage because it can be hands-off, right? It's just that everybody's eager to actually solve these issues. And that makes it where I have a little more freedom to be able to do the things that I think are important in the picture.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us. And where can people learn out more about the Purism laptop?
Yeah, pretty simple. Our URL is puri.sm.
And when is the new phone coming out? Any new announcements you want to make right here while we have everyone's attention?
April is when the phone's coming out.
Great.
And the only new announcement, it would be that we're planning to release what we call Liberty, which is going to be the decentralized ethical services. And these are built off of existing technologies. We're just rolling them all up into a single product. So it's going to be great, and 2019 is already preparing itself to be a jamming year for us. So it's going to be. I'm very excited.
All right, absolutely. And guys, if we talk about Purism a lot, and I hope you looked into it. And if you are still, if you're after this interview still on doubt that Purism is not amazing, well then I do not know what we can do for you. So get your hands on this amazing super slick laptop. I for sure cannot wait until I get my hands on some to do further testing and provide you all these videos here and to see if this is actually really a good thing or just vaporware. Not yet sure.
Funny.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Really
It's been an honor, and keep up the good fight.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. That's it.
All right, and we're still live. It looks like they're going to bring in another guest. It seemed like they had one of the sponsors floating around, but just of course as we were ready to talk to him, he disappeared. They also delivered what seems to be a stack of Go Tennas over there, but I'm not sure where those guys went as well. We have a lot of people out there, but it seems like no one is coming in. Everyone's listening to us on these new silent disco headphones, which is really great. Maybe everyone could raise their hand if they're listening to us. We'll do an audio survey. Hey, we got one guy. But again, we'd like to see some more dancing. But hopefully we can get one of the sponsors in here or just another guest. But we're having a great morning already. We talked to Jana from Blockchain Talks in Amsterdam. That was great. Wonderful interview with Purism. I've always wanted to hear more about that, and it's great, as they say, to hear it from the horse's mouth, right?
And isn't it amazing? I mean, come on, guys, Purism.
All right. Thank you so much. What's your name? Come on down.
Frank. Hi.
Hi,
Nice
Frank.
to
I'm
meet you.
Tom. Nice to meet
Tom.
you.
Hi, Tom.
Nice to meet you. Max.
Max.
All
Nice
right.
to meet
And
you.
Frank, I know from your T-shirt that you're from CoinMate.
Yeah, that is right.
What do you guys do at CoinMate?
So we are, European crypto. Oh, sorry. We are, European crypto exchange.
Excellent.
So we are operating all around the globe. We are usually based in the UK. We have a seat in the UK, so we are UK company. So that's it. We are a crypto exchange.
And you guys take Bitcoin?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, I like Bitcoin. And what kind of other currencies can people exchange Bitcoin for at your exchange?
Yeah, nowadays it's a Litecoin,
Sure.
and we are
Litecoin's
planning to get some more, currency pairs like, Ethereum, Monero.
Sure. Everyone likes the altcoins. It's a big speculative market. It's very exciting.
Yeah, definitely. Why not? What about Zcash,
Yeah, I've heard that's a popular one too. I think Ryan was there, and I know Peter Todd destroyed his laptop, had lots of fun with that project.
Yeah,
Peter Todd loves to destroy lots of things, not just laptops. But whenever he gets a chance to smash some hardware, I think he's there for you.
Yeah.
And so you're the legal, or you're working on the legal side for CoinMate, right? And so what is your general view on the regulators in this cryptocurrency space?
Guys, I heard you have a great interview, with guys from General Bytes, and
Sure.
you talk about,
Yeah, it was great to talk to
you
Mark.
talk about, AML directive,
KYC,
and KYC and things like that. There are many regulations. I mean, more and more regulations come at us from many directions because regulators are a little bit afraid of the things they don't understand.
Well, it might be a libertarian fairy tale, but I've heard something that in the EU they have 20,000 pages dedicated to the selling, preservation, and quality of pickles. So I know it can get a bit out of control. People say the Constitution's about 10 pages long. Seemed like it worked pretty good, at least until yesterday. But you know, what happens with you and the regulators? How's it going?
Yeah, you need to be honest, because
Absolutely.
we are, in very exciting time of our industry. I mean, in the crypto
Yeah.
industry,
All happening.
everyone has, has new disruptive ideas, right?
Yeah.
And the regulators, they need to solve many issues, so very, fast and proper. So, but the sources are not unlimited.
Time is limited. Yes.
Yeah. And there is, there are not enough, legal and IT experts. So in this field,
That's right.
and these people are in the private sector rather than in the public. So
Sure.
So regulators are kept in their in their trap, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They see
definitely.
things from their
Yeah.
own framework. They
Yeah.
can't see too much else. Yeah.
But speaking about the AML and KYC, we have now in place. AML number 5, right?
Right. It must be the good one.
Yeah.
I like Rocky 4.
Yeah,
Rocky
there
5,
was
not so
there
much.
was number 4 2 years ago.
Sure.
I'm quite sure that that
6 is on its
yeah,
way.
it's
Sure.
on the way.
Yeah.
Definitely. But I would like to mention that it's quite new that there is risk factor guideline
Yeah.
from the Europe.
Sure.
Yeah, under which crypto exchanges are forced to assess all risk and factors related to the customer's own transactions. So it's very tough for people. I mean, for supporting people in the exchanges, and for the customers, because people are really upset when the onboarding process it took hours or days or sometimes months. So, but guys, that's not our invention.
Sure.
Sorry about that, but
you have to deal with the system you're given.
We need to follow the rules.
Certainly, Martin from General Bytes was talking yesterday about how they have many AML and KYC features on the ATMs, but they start with them off, and they suggest to their customers, turn on the ones you're required to turn on. Don't turn on the others if you're not required to yet. And, of course, to follow the law and to do the best that you can. But also we heard about things from Jorg yesterday, that Coinbase is actually looking at your transactions after you've sent them, and that you send your Bitcoin to another wallet, then maybe you send your Bitcoin to a gambling website. God forbid you want to bet on football. Seems legal in some places, not legal in others. But this idea of being free with your money. If you go to an ATM and you get a 50 euro note and you go to the park and you buy whatever you want, the banker's not responsible for it at all. But there seems to be another standard in crypto because they can get the information. Do you guys do anything like that? Do you follow the transactions of your customers?
Yeah. So we have minimal requirements
Sure.
According to AML KYC, because it's very frustrating for the customers and for the community. So we have rational approach,
Right.
minimalistic approach, let's say, about it. But I am quite sure that you heard about the anti-money laundering scandal in Scandinavia, where Nordea Bank, there is several hundred millions of euros laundered, in this bank. So
it's almost like they're a laundromat, like they're set up
it's
to
a laundering.
do this,
Yeah, sometimes the banks are a little bit, laundering machines,
Sure. On the famous story from, I think, Latin America, where they sized the night drop slots to fit the briefcases with the money, and then the gangsters or whoever they were slid the briefcases right into the drop slots.
Yeah. And that's what a banking license is, right? It's a license to launder money above the law, right?
Okay.
in some aspect. So you talked a lot about the cost for the individual user of Know Your Customer and anti-money laundering, and that it's really inconvenient for them. But what are the costs for you as an exchange? What additional efforts do you have to put in, and what other services can you not work on because of these additional costs?
The costs are pretty high, because we, with every, new directive, we need to, implement requirements into our system. So it's a very stress. It's a big stress for our IT crowd, IT guys.
If you don't do it right, you only go to jail, right?
Yeah.
So big whoopsie. Yeah, sorry about that.
So we aim our sources to to prepare some legal solutions instead of to create some great services and to be closer to the community and to our customers. So what a shame, but as I said, regulators are afraid of they don't
Sure,
know
things they don't understand. The future.
Yeah.
And on the customer side, you have all the basic security. You have two-factor authentication, things like this. Keep the funds safe.
Yeah, exactly. As you mentioned, we have all of that. Two-factor verification. There is only limited funds in our hot wallet and things like that. I mean, that's a common approach in the whole industry. I suppose. So I would like to mention that, in the Czech Republic, here right now, that a few weeks ago, there's been, established, a crypto working party under Czech FinTech Association, and they are going to.
I like parties.
Yeah, you like parties, as I do. and they are going to publish some let's say code of conduct or crypto codex, because I think personally that self-regulation is much better than hard regulation from the regulators, because the participants on the market are closely to solve issues we have, so that's it.
And you bring up the point of self-regulation, which I do agree is really the way to go. It is best practices, it is standards, right? So how do we make sure that the companies in the space adhere to these best practices without using the political violence and political force?
It's maybe it's not a question of law. It's a question of ethics and a question for community.
That's right.
It's something like a social consensus that we accept that we need to follow these principles and these rules because they are sufficient and efficient. Because we have such contract, let's say social contract between the market participants and with our customers. So this is probably the solution, that we do not need the regulatory some interventions or something like that.
And how are you enjoying the Prague conference? And are you guys a sponsor of the conference? I think you are.
Unfortunately, I was quite sick, on Friday and Saturday. But I follow your YouTube channel.
Hey, you can keep up right there, live on YouTube, right?
Yeah, definitely. But I'm enjoying very much, because it's a very lively congress, and people are talking, about great topics like civil rights, freedom, and peer-to-peer networks. And it seems they're having a very good time here in studio and in the sessions. So me and my friend from Comains, we are very happy to be part of it, and it's pleasure to be in the most famous crypto anarchy institute. In Prague, in the center of our republic, in the melting point of Czech culture. I don't know if you know that, but we are going to celebrate 100 years of our republic, and our very founders built a century ago their own Paralelní Polis.
That's right.
A century ago.
Yes.
As a space for free men and for democracy, independent from Austrian Hungarian Empire.
Right.
So I'm looking forward to meet the guys, and I see many crypto bohemians here. So I'm very proud of it. So it's great congress.
Well, and this place that we're in, Paralelní Polis, is the parallel city, and it's kind of like a shadow government or a world that we wish things were like. And we just talked to the guy who does the Purism laptop, and they're all about open source and open source hardware and publishing the schematics. And again, this is an idealist view of computer hardware. This is how we wish and hope things could be. And I think in this way, Paralelní Polis, and especially going back to the Czech founding and the problems with Czech and other countries and who's running who and this kind of thing, if we set out for an ideal, and we're like, Martin Luther King or Gandhi, and we say things can be better. The British can leave India. We can have email that's not read by Google all the time. Sometimes we can actually achieve that goal. It might take 100 years. It might take 10 minutes. But we can do these things when we state a positive goal and when we work together for them. So it's a very exciting place to be.
Yeah. And the Czechs, we are very focusing, out on the ITs, and we are very good at it. So it's a great place, and again, it's an honor to be here, guys, in your studio.
Yeah. Well, we're glad that you have you, and it's been a nice conversation already. So where do you think is the future going? Do you think we are on a path towards liberty.com, or do you think that it is more going to be a path towards more regulation, more nanny state, more government intervention?
Fortunately, I need to be quite pessimistic, because my background, I used to work in public and private sector, so
Sure.
Generally speaking, I moved from the dark side to the light.
That's right. We still got a man from Deutsche Bank here on the couch, but we try not to mention it.
and the regulatory approach is to have more and more regulations.
That is.
Unfortunately, to bound our freedom and our democracy, because they don't like, any, islands of free or freedom. So, unfortunately, I think that's going to be, more regulation and legislation in place. So that's my opinion. I hope I'm wrong.
Well, that's what they say. When all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So you're very rough that way.
Yeah.
But where can people check out CoinMate, and what can they do? Just once again, the exchange. It's at coinmate.com. Or
yeah. It's you can find us on the CoinMate.io.
Right.
Yeah. And we provide our services 24/7. And you are free to go under our onboarding process. Unfortunately, we have some anti-money laundering and customer.
You have to follow the laws. We all want to pay our taxes. We want to follow the laws. We want to do the right thing.
But we are trying to to have minimum sets of rules, not to interrupt our customers, not bother them, not annoying them, and things like that. So I think it's quite good service. We are very famous in the Czech Republic. It's quite known crypto exchange, and we are trying to going abroad, to.
So right now you mainly serve the Czech Republic. Are there any other countries where people can access your service?
Wow, you can have access from all around the world except the United States. Because it's because of FATCA. And the SEC. It's quite complicated.
Certainly.
To communicate with their IRS and authorities like that. So you can access from every place all around the globe except United States.
Every place except where I'm from.
Yeah,
I won't take it personally then.
Well,
sorry about that.
Well, it's the place, the land of the free and the home of the brave, right? But sorry, no services for you. But that is exactly what government regulation does, right? It increases the cost for good businesses like you drastically. And if you increase the cost, well, then you have to shut down your business. Right? And that is just a shame that through this regulation, as Andreas Antonopoulos likes to say, you cannot get Bitcoin out of your country, but you can get your country out of Bitcoin. And that is clearly what is happening right now with regulations like FATCA or all the other nonsensical stuff. So Frank, thank you very much for joining us here on the World Crypto Network.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure talking to you.
It's been a pleasure. Yeah.
And absolutely, thank you very much for supporting and for sponsoring here the Hackers Congress at Paralelní Polis. It's great work that you're doing, and thank you for reaching out here and making sure that this great organization continues to flourish.
We are glad to make this happen. You know, we are very proud to sponsor such an event, and
Sure.
I hope we will meet next year and take some chat, you know, and speak about, you know, maybe less regulation.
We can always hope. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. And that was Frank from coinmate.io. You can check that out if you're in the Czech Republic or pretty much anywhere except the United States. So better luck next time, people in the US. We just have a lot of laws there. In the EU, it's great. You can have kind of all the laws together. Of course, England thinks differently now. And of course, America has its own laws. It's a complex system. You certainly have to follow the KYC AML rules. Even if you'd prefer something different, when you're a business, you have to be a business. When you're a customer, you have to be a customer. And sometimes they want to know you, and they have a lot of questions.
And you know, there are ways of you know, making sure that you can still get these services, and these are of course peer-to-peer decentralized exchanges, and we like the shilling, right? We like the shilling of good projects. And so for example, the Bisq.network is a great decentralized exchange where you do trade peer-to-peer without a central point of failure that the government can apply pressure on. So if you are in America and you still want to get the freedom of the markets, right? Bisq.network is a nice place to go. Hodl.com, the organizers and sponsors of the Riga Baltic Honey Badger Conference.
Right.
Another not so decentralized but still peer-to-peer exchange are ways of doing so. So Thomas, how do you think, and how can we use technology to make sure that we still have the free market?
Well, I think it starts with yourself and with the ideology. You have to believe in privacy. You have to believe, like we say with the parallel city, that things can get better. You have to imagine a better future. Orwell or maybe Huxley were great at imagining these dark futures, and certainly the show Black Mirror is a modern version of that. And there's lots of horrors out there. The night is dark and full of terrors. The Queen of Darkness, and you know, it's very much out there, and we need to guard against this. And we can't let darkness win. Sometimes they take away your lights, and then they just keep them off for days and days. And even if you have the fancy remote control to change the colors, it doesn't matter. Changing the colors of the lights doesn't do anything. You could say, Siri or Alexa, shut off the lights, but you have to keep the light on. And you know, you can't just give up and say that 2 + 2 is 5. We have to stand up for some basic things, and I think privacy and freedom are many of those, and we must maintain the light.
Oh yes, and there are powers to be that do take away the light.
Rage and rage against the dying of the light, as the poem says. So,
This is too funny.
yeah. Well, again, I have an audience of 2, but I'm making them choke to death. So you guys have got to imagine there's quite a lot of good jokes in here. But we're looking for the next guest. It seems like there's a lot of people out there. Some of them have the headphones on. Others are completely ignoring us. But if the next guest could come on in, and we'll just keep going here.
Yeah.
Hi, how's it going? I'm Tom.
Hello. It's great.
So, please
Come on
sit
down. I'm Tom. Nice to meet you. What's your name? Pavel.
And Max, nice to meet you too. It's always nice when the door opens to this aquarium because we get like this gust of free wind. So
Don't even mention wind. Come on, let's go to a different topic. But Pavel is here from SimpleCoin. What do you guys do at SimpleCoin?
SimpleCoin is actually crypto exchange. It's not a coin itself. It's now today. It's like
It's never too late.
confusing. Now we're not going to do any ICO.
Good for
or
you.
At least it's not planned right now.
Sure, fingers crossed.
But SimpleCoin was created 5 years ago, and by that time there was just the Bitcoin. So
Right.
it was actually proper name for Bitcoin exchange because even Litecoin wasn't there. So it
Sure.
was just like nobody would mess it up with some whatever kind of strange 1,200 something coin.
That's
you know?
right. There are so many. But at Simple Coin, can people use fiat to buy Bitcoin and other coins?
Yes, we do. We started as a single pair exchange, like fiat krona to Bitcoin.
Sure.
And later we added euro, and this year we added other altcoins like Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, Ripple, Ethereum.
And what countries do you serve with Simple Coin? Where can people use it?
Most of the business we do in Czech Republic for the Czech kronas, because we are like the oldest exchange, the biggest one, and we're trying to expand slowly into European market. So we have good position in Slovakia because we went there like in 2014 already with the Slovak version, and they have their Eurozone, so they trading with euros,
Sure.
which is then SEPA payment, which is like transparent across the whole Europe. So we're trying to reach out to other countries, which is not easy, but we're trying.
And do most of your customers access it through a web page, or do you also have an application on the phones?
We only have a web page, but it's optimized for mobile, so
Excellent.
it just works really nice today. So if you use your Android, you will have Gmail, so you can do social login without any password, and you can start trading immediately because we do anonymous trading up to 400 euros per month.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. So you wouldn't have to put in your information if you want to trade up to 400 euros a month?
Well, there are some conditions which should be met. So it's like one of these is that you shouldn't hide your IP address, and it's not supposed to look suspicious.
Right.
And the account should be like personal one. If it's company account, then we would like ask you to proceed with identification. But most of the normal people can start can try it with small amount, and it should work fine.
So it's called Simple Coin. Does it have a very easy to use interface? Are you targeting more normal users, or is it for advanced traders?
It's really as simple as it can be. We started the company, like we made it in 3 weeks. It was just the front page where you could enter the amount, Bitcoin address, and your email, and just push submit button, and it was like storing recording database. Like
Yeah, sure.
And we showed
Got
you
it,
like,
yeah.
okay, send the money here, and it started coming actually.
It's exciting, yeah.
That's what we're trying to keep. It's getting a little more complicated because we have now we do cross exchanges, so it's making the price calculations much more difficult because you don't have one price, you have like table of prices, because you can do like Monero, or you can do like Litecoin to Bitcoin Cash exchange, and
Sure. Rather than just the straight USD exchange, you actually are trading the coins and they're actively moving, and you have to match them up somehow, right?
So how about advanced trading stuff like limit orders and stuff like this?
we are preparing that, so we don't have order book. So we trading against the biggest exchanges. We have like 3 or 4 big exchanges with different currencies. So we don't really want to keep our crypto in our wallets for a long time, and but we're thinking we will create a kind of limit order, because now it works like you can also suspend the order. So if you just create the order and just put it like on wait, then you can pay it already. It gets like received, activated, and then you get a button like which you press anytime, and you get the actual price. So it's now very easy to create limit order where you just say like push the button when the price is better than this, or So that's the next step. I think we will have it within like 1 month.
So I would say you're more of a classical exchange where people go to trade their Bitcoin for their Litecoin, and then maybe you take your Litecoin, put it in your hardware wallet. Do you suggest that customers hold their funds on your exchange, or is it more go there and trade and come back later?
The idea is to do it like you would do Czech krona to euro exchange in train station. You just go there, give one money, get another money.
Right.
Everything is cleared, and you leave. We have no debts. You have no debts. All the business is like closed. So that's the idea. But many people just wants to have this limit ordered, so
Sure.
we will probably do it. It changes the game significantly, because then you keep because right now we work with our own money, so if we get robbed, if we lose the money, it's our money, and like we don't have to deal with any customers who lost funds. But if we just say like, okay, you can now create these limit orders, you can deposit like tens of or hundreds of bitcoins,
Sure,
and then it
sure.
gets lost. We would have to like think about cold storage. And,
Exactly, yeah, you're going to need a
all
cold
these
storage
things like this,
solution.
so-
And I was just going to say, do you have the normal security, 2FA, secure passwords, all these kind of things?
We have 2FA already right now, and still the idea is to keep this for normal people. Like
Right.
if you really change fiat money in your bank, you never open orders, you don't place limit orders.
Sure.
You just see the price table, you just say, I need it now, I see the price, I send the money, get the other money. So that's what we want to stay with. We will probably add more coins and keep it still as simple as it can be.
Well, and it's very important to have these options for normal people so they can try out Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies just in the way that they use their online bank accounts. The things that they're used to, log in, password, buy something, done with it, that's the way it needs to be. And I think it's great that you're trying to keep it simple and make it easy to use.
And Thomas is always defending the use case of a complete no-coiner, a complete newbie, going to this exchange for the first time. So what is his process? How fast and with what type of effort can he get his hands on the first Bitcoin?
We don't deal with wallets, so we expect like the client already know what Bitcoin is and how, at least the principle, how the wallet is working. We have created pages like how-tos, how to get the wallet, how to install it. We have some with some video helpers how to install Electrum wallet on your desktop, how to register a blockchain info wallet.
Right.
We explain the differences, the risk, the safeties, and then if the client has the wallet, then we made some exchanges here. It took like 1 or 2 minutes actually for
Great.
the newcomers, because they did it from the phone, and on this conference we can accept cash, so he created the order, said I want to spend this much kronas or euros, and pushed the order. We just took the cash and sent the coins to his wallet. He just pasted it in, and that's it.
And we know that you're one of the sponsors here at HCPP, and in addition to sponsoring this conference, in what other ways are you reaching out to the local Czech community, going to meetups or maybe advertising, these kind of things? How are you bringing new people into Bitcoin and into your exchange?
Well, we advertising on Czech Google site
Sure.
because Google banned the commercials for exchanges, like all of them. So we do something like AdWords on the Czech market.
Right.
We have sponsored some Bitcoin blogs. So,
Great.
and we actually have now affiliate program. So we offer like 30% of our fee from the orders the clients you bring. They do in the future, like at least in 1 year we didn't put any limitation so far, but maybe we won't put it there. So it's like it's a long run, but if you start, then the profit actually rising all the time.
There's always more and more interest, it seems, in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, and it's especially great to spread it to other countries and to have local people who live there working on it, building the local exchanges, things like we were just talking to coinmate.io and simplecoin.com, where these people can get Bitcoin and try it out in their own language, in a system they're comfortable with. They could, if they had real trouble, they could call someone or go to the local office, these kind of things. Whereas, using Coinbase or something in some other country might just seem incredibly distant and incredibly, not local. So it's great to have people working on a local solution where people can buy and try out these coins locally.
That's actually where we are best in, because we have the phone. You can really call us. We have almost non-stop service. Like from 9 till 9, you can call us. If we don't pick up, we call back. We have ticketing system. We answer it like online. We work weekends. The banks don't work weekends. But we do.
Well, Bitcoin never closes, right? And that's one of the big trading problems is when you go to sleep, do you sleep in crypto or do you sleep in fiat? And sometimes you sleep stressfully, not very well. So, but what kind of questions do you get on the helpline or in the email? What are people asking?
There are really like newcomers asking what's the Bitcoin address. They often mess it up with a blockchain wallet ID.
Sure.
We
Can
just
look
have
very
to
similar.
Explain like what is what, and then now there are these address format changes for Litecoin, for Bitcoin. There are new prefixes, so people get confused. So this is quite often they ask this, and then they ask very often like how much time takes the bank transfer to be credited.
Sure, everyone's in a rush to get their Bitcoins. I know when I was first getting in, I tried to transfer some money to Mt. Gox with a Dwolla account, and it didn't work, and my money just sat in Dwolla, and then a few days later I gave up and I used a Coinbase account, or just whatever I could do to just get my hands on a little bit of Bitcoin back in the day. And it's become easier, but it's also become harder because so many more people want this Bitcoin, and they don't know what to do. So they do need helplines, and they need local people who can talk to them, especially in the local language, and help them get their first Bitcoins.
Yeah, you're perfectly right, and that's what we're targeting. We're not really trying to be like full-blown exchange with leverage trading.
Sure. Let the other people do that, but we do need a simple way in. We need an easy way to get access to these coins, and I think it's a great idea, and I'm glad you guys are doing it. I think it's just kind of a wide open ocean out there, and there's just tons of space for everyone, and that we can all, a rising tide lifts all boats, and I think that we'll all be on a boat going up someday. So.
We actually partnered recently with an Italian company called Chainblock,
and so many names in this space, but yes, Chainblock. Oh gosh,
I'm surprised that nobody has used that name before. That's a quite good name.
Well made, yeah.
Yeah, and they came to us saying that they are building exchange like what we have, and we just agreed that we have it already, so we provide them all the services. It's branded, it looks like their page, but all the technology is ours. And they are Italians, they live in Italy, they know these jurisdictions, so they will deal with all this. So they will deal with KYC, with their local clients in Italian language. So this is really promising for us, and it's probably the way we want to go to other countries, because it's much easier if local people do it with their money, and they get most of the profit, so all the motivation is on their side. They will do marketing, they will do presentations, and we just get like a little fee from running the service, so we can then concentrate on developing the site, adding more functionality, more coins.
And that is great, and collaboration is really useful and really necessary in this space. And we here at the WCN, we talk a lot about open source, right? Because that is the ultimate form of collaboration. So what are your thoughts on open sourcing your backend, and is that a standard practice in exchanges?
We think that we may split the design to client-server architecture, and we open source the client one, because it's really security concern to open the backend.
Most definitely.
And then it's got actually commercial value. So just open sourcing it would be like giving a few years of hard work of 3-4 people up to the to everybody. But the biggest concern is the security. But as you said, like, because we want to have more partners, and every partner want to have different front ends. So,
right.
And the requirements are really like varying. So we would just provide them API like template front end, so like tweak it the way you want.
And we were talking to John Light earlier about upgrades and forcing them, and if people are ready. And I think you can do it quickly or you can do it safely. And I'd like to do it the second part, especially when it's my money or my friend's money or my family's money on the line. That extra step of testing and security and making sure that it's ready before you push it out can be the difference between losing everyone's money or running a good business.
Yeah, we have the advantage that we did it quickly already back in 2013.
Yep, yeah.
And then, we started like little upgrades, changes, and then it came up to this hard solution saying like, we can't like do it forever this way.
No.
We just started from scratch. We threw every single way.
Absolutely.
And we said, like, let's do it the best way, the way we can work forever. So for example, now we use the core wallets everywhere, which is giving the big advantage. Like if there are like protocol change, address change, whatever, we just upgrade the wallets and we have it right in the system. So.
All right, that sounds great. Where can people find more about SimpleCoin?
They can just go to simplecoin.eu and try to register. They can reach to us by email, they can reach to us on our Facebook profile. And I suppose the easiest way is just to check it out, try it out, because we do trades since €5, I think. So.
Well, that's great, and thank you so much for sponsoring the Paralelní Polis conference. I think this is a really great place, and we always want to recognize the sponsors and thank them because it really does make this possible. There's a lot that goes into making a conference like this, not just what we do here or what the speakers do up there, but also what the crew does and what all the guys do in preparation, getting ready for this, and we really couldn't do it without the sponsors, so thank you so much for your support.
Yeah, thank you for your invitation, and I hope see you again next year.
Yeah, next year.
Absolutely.
It'd be great to see you again. So thank you so much.
It's been great talking to you.
From SimpleCoin,
Thank you very
Pavel.
much. And as Thomas said, supporting these types of conferences is really important. And yes, it can be done by public sponsorship by these types of companies. It is being done by the speakers, right, to dedicate their time. It is being done by all the tech people who make sure that the live streams are working and all that stuff. And of course, all the volunteers to make sure that there's enough food, enough drinks, and all that. So everyone is doing his little bit in order to support this community, and that's what makes it so beautiful, right? This collaborative approach.
That's right. Everyone shares, and you share whatever you're good at. Everyone has something they can contribute. Maybe you speak a foreign language. I don't speak a foreign language. Maybe you can draw. I don't draw that well. But there's a lot of things that you can do to contribute to the cryptocurrency industry that aren't necessarily programming, that aren't necessarily writing code or making a business. All of these things contribute and help make this conference and other things possible that wouldn't happen without you and your support. So everyone needs to get involved. You don't need to wait for someone to give you permission, although like the Wizard of Oz, I will give you courage and I will give you a brain and maybe I'll even give you a heart. but you're going to have to work for yourself, and you have to come back every day if you want to work for yourself.
But Thomas is not going to give you a heart on Twitter because he switched to favorites again.
I still have favorites. I've got a great software program called Fave Forever, and it keeps my Twitter feed full of stars, and there are never any hearts, because I like stars better than I like likes and hearts. And I like Twitter being different from Facebook. Facebook, of course, has the like button, and they have the heart, and they have the sad, and all these other things, so they can read your emotions, which I'm not too crazy about. Twitter used to have the favorite, and I liked that. It was a star. There it is.
Well, yeah, and you know, that's the thing with all these different social media networks. They try to do their own thing, but then when something works, they all jump on it, right? We saw that with Snapchat. We made quite a useful thing, right? With these snaps and these stories. But now Instagram has these stories, and WhatsApp has them, and you know, Twitter probably also.
So funny, when Snapchat started out, it was just all about naked pictures, but that's a long time ago.
Such a bummer.
How are you guys?
Doing great. Come on
good.
down.
Fine.
Juanse, nice to
you
see you
doing?
again.
Tom, nice to meet you. Adolfo.
No, we have spiritual spirits or what?
Oh yeah, we've got all the water you can drink.
Okay,
maybe a Coca-Cola.
Maybe this is not as an anarchist program I thought it was going to be, no? Some wine or no?
They've decriminalized everything here, but they haven't set up any shops, so it's kind of like
Okay.
not quite compatible with normal
Okay.
usage yet.
Okay.
Sad, but
First we need.
I was talking about wine though. I was talking about wine.
Well, we can do this.
Just to make it clear, my honey, my wife is watching. I was talking about wine.
That's right. Well, and we can do a survey out here. If anyone's listening to us on the headphones, they could raise their hand if they want to get Adolfo a glass of wine.
White wine, please.
White wine,
please.
I'm sure we can arrange that.
Please. Okay, that's acceptable.
That's the
On
system here.
You are people of very bad thoughts. No?
We
Damn.
can get things done.
Yeah, okay.
But
Okay,
for
remember, I'm a lawyer, not a liar, so everything I do is under. No, it's not under. Is within the law.
There's only a few letters difference. It can be so hard to keep them separate.
Hey.
But we're joined by Adolfo Linares, who we saw speak in the
thank
opening
you very
conference. He's a lawyer. He worked with the Panama Papers, and he said some fantastic quotes during the opening press conference. I tweeted a lot of them. If you guys are following the Mad Bitcoins Twitter feed, Adolfo talked about privacy and why it's important. And maybe we could just start there. Why do people need privacy? What if I don't have anything to hide?
Well, I think we have to. It's very. Sometimes for me, I'm 53 years old and I have kids from 20, 21, 18, and 14, and they all have Instagram, Snapchats, Facebook. They don't even have Facebook. Facebook is for all
No,
guys.
Facebook
like me.
for old people.
For all guys,
Yeah,
for
that's
all
very
guys
true.
like me.
That's very true
They
now.
have Twitter.
Yes, yes.
And when you want to enter, and then you have your bank accounts when you want to do electronic banking. Anytime you want to enter and to apply all those and use all those platforms, you need to put a PIN and a password.
Yes.
That's called privacy.
Yes.
And you don't have nothing to hide.
No,
No,
of
but
course
that's
not.
called privacy. We have to understand, and sometimes youth people doesn't understand it because they are living in a society that there's less privacy. But at the end, freedom. There's no life without freedom. No, there's no life without freedom, and there's no freedom without privacy. And privacy, that doesn't mean secrecy. That doesn't mean privacy. Doesn't mean it is opaque. Privacy means that I decided to keep it as confident as I want, as long as I don't breach any laws, and as long there is no legal request from a how to say in English from the proper authority,
Right,
in this case
right.
a judge, to that make you waive that privacy right, which is not absolute. No, which is not absolute.
Nope.
So then you can, and it has to be a specific request. No, therefore, but nowadays what we are seeing, especially because of this, of the excuse of money laundering and now tax evasion, and also for security reasons, terrorism and stuff like that, you see that everybody's talking about, especially the United Nations, the Financial Action Task Force, the International Monetary Funds, etc., the OECD. They are preaching from one side and forcing weak countries like Panama on the other side to change our laws in order to suppress privacy, to exchange information of everybody in an automatic way without any reasons nor any a court order. And I ask myself, should the government can do that in the United States? No, they cannot.
No.
And if I don't think the governments can do that also in democratic state in Europe. Well, maybe in France and in Germany they are doing that so far, but that's not the way in Panama we design our economy, and it's a very despot initiative. And a lot of people laugh when I said on Friday a quote that I say that ISIS and the OECD are very similar. No, because you know the OECD, the OECD is an organization that wants to promote fiscal transparency and is promoting the war on tax evasion, and everybody has to show everything, public registration of ownership of everything. And both organizations are the same in as much as they have the same objective, to different means, but they have the same objective, to diminish people's freedom. The ISIS might use terror and kill people and bombs and kidnaps, but the OECD wants to diminish freedoms of the people by knowing everything they have, what they do, what they buy, to whom they buy, what they pay, etc., etc., etc. And that's very scary.
Well, and certainly we know in the United States that money laundering, or you could call it the war on financial freedom, started...
How do you win that war?
Well, it started in the 1970s as part of the drug war. They were cracking down on cartels and people that were using money ways that people didn't want them to, and then that kind of ended, and now they've just expanded to cracking down on everyone. So I don't know how we win it, but first we have to make people aware that they've lost their financial freedom and that all of their transactions are being tracked, probably for no reason, as most of us are not criminals, although Tone Vase likes to say anyone who's using cash must be a tax cheat, that the government sees all cash transactions as a problem, and that we're actually probably tilting the other way, where there might not even be any cash in the future, and that would end a lot of these off-the-table transactions which the government currently can't tax and currently can't see.
Because at the end, I think, Panamanian laws were founded as a image to the U.S. Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
We cherish life, freedom, and the pursuit of happiness, and we were molded under that great concept that was created by the founding father of the U.S., probably one of the greatest minds of all time, Benjamin Franklin, James Madison, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, etc., etc., James Monroe, etc., etc. And that theory was tailored against the monarchies, the absolute monarchs, who were the people who has the absolute power to tax everybody, because against their law, they were the owners of everything. That's not the case in America. And when I say America, I'm not only referring to America, the United States, but also the whole continent, because in Latin America, all countries, unfortunately, we have been detoured to follow the European taxation model, but we were tailored by the U.S. model of where the citizen is the most important people in the society, not the government, not the bureaucrats, and not even majorities, because sometimes in the name of the approval of majorities, some minority has been suppressed. So that's why at the end we have to understand that laws and the constitution and the laws are drafted to limit the power of governments, not to suppress or diminish the freedom of citizens. And that's the detour that I'm seeing that is very dangerous, especially for small countries like us, because we are being forced to, especially in countries like Panama, Latin America, it's not like Europe, you have your own problems, but fortunately for you, your institutions are very strong. You are developed countries, etc. But in Panama, in Latin America, we are third world countries, man. I mean, our legal system is corrupt. There's no separation of power. The justice is very politically influenced. So now you want us to give those kind of politicians the capacity to know what we do, what we buy,
all the
time. And who's going to defend us? Uncle Sam? No, he won't.
Well,
so that's the problem. So, and at the end, it's a distortion of the concept of at the end of a free society, where in a free society, the most principal element is the individual, his rights. You have, and the government has to respect his rights as long as he does not behave in a way that affect other people's rights.
Well, and certainly when you're the smallest kid on the playground, you're always going to get picked on. And as we learned in books like the Confessions of an Economic Hitman, organizations like the IMF go around handing out loans. And at first it's great because, boy, do you need that money. But later on they come back and they say, here's some copyright law, here's some money laundering law.
Who is the general director of the IMF? A former French finance minister who was condemned by corruption in France.
If you
and
can't,
now she got a golden parachute retirement post at the IMF. At the end, that's the problem. The IMF has distorted itself. It used to be a banking institution run by bankers, but now it has become like the IMF, the OECD, and World Bank has become like the retired heaven of all the former finance ministers of France and the US, etc. And they are acting on behalf of the governments that are they appointed them, and that's not fair.
Yeah. And you brought up in a conversation that we had elsewhere that Panama does not have legal tender laws, which I find fascinating. So why is that?
That's not new.
Yes, but why is that, and what was the pushback from other countries?
Panama has never had a central bank. Panama, by constitution, we have since when we were established as a republic in 1903, our founding fathers, who were liberals, not liberals like in the U.S., but liberal like classic.
True liberals.
Classic
yes,
liberal.
yes.
So now it's been called libertarians, but I don't agree with that term really. Remember that Panama is a country founded by immigrants, much like the U.S. Before the 1800s, when the Spaniards came to America, there were three cities important in the whole continent: Mexico and Peru, which were where all the richness was. The money. Not the money, the gold, the silver, the copper, the fruit, potato, tomato, etc. And then all that from Mexico, all that. Richness was sent, all that stuff was sent to Spain directly, but from Peru, which was gathered from the Pacific side, they have to go through Panama, which is the narrowest place in the Americas, and then by mule goes. That was the first Panama Canal. By mule, they took all the mangoes and the gold and the silver to the Caribbean, and then shipped it to Spain. And Panama, since that time, became a hub of services, trade and commerce, and then in the 1840s, in 1842, two Americans, don't remember the name, they obtained a concession to build a train from the Caribbean side of Panama to the Pacific side of Panama. That was the second Panama Canal. And it happens that when they finished in 1945, 2 years later, they discovered gold in California.
Yep.
And that became a huge influx of people that wanted to go from the east to the west. And they have two ways to do it. Through Panama, they have to cross the Appalachian Mountains and then the Rocky Mountains by wagon, and then the Indians.
Yes.
And 6 months later, if they arrive, okay, they made it. Or you have to
could
go
all the way around the
New
Cape.
York, or you can go
South
around
America,
the Cape.
yeah.
Or the shorter one.
That's right.
The shortest one was through the Panama Canal. That you take a boat from Philadelphia, Boston, or New York, and they will take you to Cologne, and then by mule or by train, they will take you to the Pacific side. And that movement of people, and because of the influence of the United States, The Chase Manhattan Bank and the Citibank were established in Panama before we were a republic in the 1800s.
It's interesting.
Because they were giving service to the railroad, to the train. That the train became in the 1850s and the 1860s the largest, the Microsoft stock of Wall Street of that era.
Sure,
Because
sure.
it was very profitable.
Imagine incredible amount
so
of
then,
growth.
when the Americans start building the Panama Canal, then the dollar was the money that was used, because the only banks that were here were Americans banks, because Colombia, we were actually a part of Colombia, and we were like an abandoned state, no?
Yeah.
There were no public services. There was no running water. There was no public school, no public health. So we always, the people who live in Panama were traders, Jews, Spanish, blacks, and that's why when you go to Panama, we are a country of immigrants, no? So that's why when we became a republic, we established that, okay, we have a Balboa, which is a symbolic currency, which we can only print it on fraction, in metal, and they are divided like the dollar, 1 penny, one nickel, one dime, 1 quarter, and a 50 cent, and they are the same. But for paper money, we use the dollar. But that doesn't mean the dollar is the legal tender. No, the Constitution said there is no legal tender in the country, and the government cannot print paper money.
Huh. No
Cannot
paper
print
money.
paper money. So since 1904, we stripped the government possibility to play with our savings and stuff like that. And why? That is why some of the tax hells that I call the countries that call Panama tax haven, like
Right.
France, Germany, call them tax hells, no? They call them tax hells.
Sure.
And I think they always see us like a ugly duck, How come they survive without central bank? And Panama, I mean, they call us tax haven. 80% of our GDP, of our budget is financed by taxes. We have property taxes, 2.1%. We have income tax for people. The highest bracket is 50%. We have corporate tax, 30% flat tax to everybody. We have VAT, 10%. Social security tax. We have many high-hidden tax at the end. So, but we have a fiscal, a fiscal system that is territorial. We don't. If you are in Panama, foreigner or local, you have to pay taxes out of your local income. If you earn income in France or in the United States, well, no, that's your problem with the United States and your problem with France.
That's so funny because I know the
So
United
again,
States
that's
government.
why the United States dollar has been the legal tender as a custom. But that doesn't mean that if I go with Czech crowns, I think is the name of the currency here,
right.
and I found somebody in Panama with a store that will accept me the Czech crowns, and then done deal.
Well, I know for the United States, it's totally different. If I make money anywhere in the world, they want their cut. Even if I am paying to the local government as well, they always want their cut.
You are right. There are two different fiscal systems in the world. Actually, three. The first one is the territorial system, which is the Panama has been using for over 100 years. Which is that everybody is equal under the law. There's no preferential if you are foreigner or local. If you live in Panama, or if you don't live in Panama, but your income is generated in Panama, then you have to pay income in Panama.
Sure.
But if you earn income in Spain or in the Czech Republic, then for Panama people, for Panamanian IRS, which it can hardly collect its own taxes.
Yeah.
I mean, this is problem with the Czech Republic with this taxpayer, because at the end, taxes are not a global problem and not even a global issue. They are a personal issue between the citizens and his government, and it's a in a personal way, it's a personal issue, and for the country, it's an issue of sovereignty. I am a sovereign in this territory, and I charge the taxes what I want, and I only collect my taxes. I don't collect anybody else's taxes. But returning to Panama, yes, Panama is being a very open society economy, which has always derived from services because of geographical position and because we cannot do anything else, because we are only a country of 77,000 square meters with no more, or land is not very good for cultivation. We are only 3 million people, but the offshore company, the offshore business only represents 2% of the economy. And the banking sector only represents 10% of the economy. So this is not, we're a real economy, diversified social services economy. But that doesn't, we don't live out of banks, we don't live out of offshore companies, but we live out of, or vertebral column, or vertebral, or spinal cord, or spinal cord of the system is basic on privacy, rule of law, no, and free trade, no, commerce, no, and now and I think that's why we are being targeted, because I think we are a proof that central banks are not the solution but the problem.
That's really amazing that you only have hard money. You have gold and silver, maybe a little US dollar, but that you don't allow your government to just endlessly print this fiat money.
That's why since 2000, since in the last 100 years, the average inflation rate in Panama has been like less than 2%.
And I mean, inflation is basically robbing people of their savings.
Less than
if you
2%.
had a house in 1920 worth $100,000, it's worth about $20,000 now. This is the reason that your grandparents can't pass anything along to you, because the inflation slowly takes it away from them. They don't even know it's happening. Meanwhile, a country like Venezuela, out of control, hyperinflation.
1,000,000% inflation.
They're trading in their money. They get paid on Friday. They buy vodka and cat food and tuna fish and other things that don't go bad, right? Because you have to buy it immediately. Canned goods, things like this are the investment of the day in Venezuela because of this hyperinflation, because of this out of control money printing. And in Bitcoin, we're really excited for the first time to offer universal, global, sound money to the people, where it's a deflationary structure with the halving. It's a limited amount with 21 million units, and it could really change things.
Let me tell you, I'm not an expert on Bitcoin nor on blockchain. No.
Nobody is.
No,
anybody tells you where they are, they're lying.
I'm way behind you guys.
It's fine.
But I know one thing. I don't know if I understand it completely, but I think I smell it.
That's the aquarium. It's quite sticky here.
And I think cryptocurrencies are a reaction to extreme government's regulation and intentions to kind of control people's finances and transactions and everything.
The chancellor on the brink of the second bailout to banks and the Genesis block of Bitcoin.
And in blockchain, which is the technology behind it, which I see, for example, an opportunity to also liberate banking without the need of corresponding banking.
That's right.
Without the need of government excessive intervention or intervention at all. Because at the end, who runs the government? The government is not run by angels. They're running by people, like you and me. And there are good people and bad people, no? But at the end, who you gonna trust if you're gonna do some business? You and the partner is in front of you. And if you're an adult and responsible person and you decide to make a business with another person, well, that's your responsibility, and you do something wrong, you have to pay the responsibility. But you don't need somebody, the government, to interfere you, which at the end is supposedly take care of you, but at the end, the real purpose is to control you and to make you know that you always under watch. And I think that I have nothing to hide. Yes, I have nothing to hide, but then I have a right of presumption of innocence. If you want me, you have to think I have something to hide, well, go to my closet and search it and then try to get a proof, and that's it. Otherwise, it's only a big brother agenda, no?
Yeah, so Adolfo, exactly, please, how much money do you have? What have you spent
Not enough.
yesterday?
Not enough. Not enough. And I'm not a greedy person, man, but not enough. Because at the end, hey, everybody, humankind, it's on the nature of humankind to improve in life. no, to not only to survive but to improve, to get better. And that means in any ways, culturally speaking, intellectually speaking, and economically speaking. And when I die, I will hope to give my kids something so they can have a little less work than I do when to live my life, and that's okay. And if I manage to be as rich as Donald Trump of I don't know whatever, if I do it right, well, good for me, because at the end that long road I created jobs, I paid taxes, etc., etc. So we shouldn't blame the rich or people who make. We shouldn't blame how you are made rich, because there's ¿cómo se dice? My English is bad. You cannot say the end do not. Well, the end doesn't mean the means.
They do not justify the means.
Not justify the end does not justify the means.
Yes.
And at the end, I think that the attack on the excuse of the elite, that's bullshit, because at the end the elite is behind all of this. Because at the end the one who are being persecuted fiscally are the middle class. The middle class, not the so-called elite, whatever, you know. And I use that term because those are the terms that you can see. But I don't believe in conspiracy theories. But that is the truth. You know, we shouldn't blame when people is success. We should promote success. We should promote creativity. We should promote entrepreneurship. Collectivism is
bad.
It's a retrocession in history. It's just show me one example of any kind of collectivism that have prevailed. Hey, you have from you know, the communist ideology has caused at least 100 million deaths. And look, Venezuela, you know, the richest country in Latin America with the largest reserve of oil, well known to men today, and it's completely collapsed thanks to collectivism. So at the end, I think, and I'm very worried, because I think the international organization has been contaminated by the syndrome by the bug of collectivism.
And I also agree. I don't think it's enough just to blame the elites or to say that it's their fault. To go back to Julius Caesar, the fault lies not in our stars, but in ourselves. It's us that it's allowing it. Yeah. It's us that's not making a choice to switch to Bitcoin, or to even read about freedom, or even to understand how the dollar works. In the United States, we went off the gold standards in the 70s. Britain went off it in the 30s. But if you ask many people today, they still think that the dollar is gold backed. They think you can go to the bank and trade it in for $20 worth of silver. But you're right, it's absolutely a worthless piece of paper. They print it over and over again. And one of the things we hope to solve with Bitcoin is to basically stop that money printing. It stops the borrowing for bombers, borrowing for reconstruction, borrowing for bombers again, but it also stops disaster relief and building roads.
And I give you a fact that will completely, my point of view, destruct the money laundering excuse for everything. About 4 years ago, I was invited to speak at the International Florida Bankers Association.
Sounds like a great group. I love to talk to bankers.
I was in Miami.
They got a whole bunch of them together, and I can be there. Oh.
And one of them, and so it was one of the topics was to discuss regulation, no? And they were members of OFAC, OECD, and the Financial Action Task Force, and all those and I did my research, man, and I said, what? I'm a lawyer. I'm a banking lawyer, so I know what is the cost of regulations for Panamanian banks. It's a huge burden.
Sure.
And then say, what? And everybody's talking about this omen of money launderers. What are we talking about?
A specter is haunting Europe.
What is that? I mean, how much? Where's the beef?
Exactly.
Where's the beef?
Where is the beef?
Like this Wendy's commercial. Where's the beef?
Yeah.
And and I searched the UN statistic on drugs and money laundering, and also I entered the Financial Action Task Force website, and I entered, I think, the Drug Enforcement Administration, or something like that.
Sure.
But at least, I don't remember if it was the DA, the third one, but those two, so you can check it. And I say, what is the percentage of black money that contaminates the world's financial GDP? No? And I said and I was expecting, because this is an epidemic.
It's a big problem. The
but-
big numbers,
I
right?
said like
Big numbers.
30%.
30, 40, 50.
You know what?
Like 3%.
Okay, because it was stuck in my mind. If you count only money laundering for drugs,
Right, absolutely.
weapons of mass destruction,
Terrorism.
and terrorism,
Yes.
you know how much is that? And which is basically the cream and butter of the money
Sure,
laundering
and
stuff.
then we have lots of agents working on this,
you know
whole
how much?
agencies.
Okay,
yes.
money laundering for drugs, weapons of mass destruction, and terrorism. The percentage calculated, because it cannot be exact because it's a black economy, but between the three of them, the three of them has like in average 3%. 3%. So all this hassle, all this military expenditure, all these laws that are diminishing our freedom and privacy we have to sacrifice in order to combat a 3% of, and then if you take out and you leave only drugs,
Right.
and if you out of that 3%, you get rid of weapons of mass destruction and terrorism, it goes to 1.8%.
Yeah.
And if you take marijuana, it's 0.5. 0.5.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
that's also, this is another topic, but that's also one of the reasons that you don't see the federal, that's my opinion, you don't see the federal government decriminalizing marijuana, because if you decriminalize marijuana federally, there's no war on drugs.
That's right.
You have to shut down the DEA, which is an organization of $5 billion budget, which I don't know how many bureaucrats, so I'm not going to get in trouble, but I don't know.
Well,
But,
and I say it all the
you know,
time.
so
that-
at the end, it's not, how much is the cost for the economy and for the banks to fight this 1.8% of, I don't see the logic on that. I don't know if I'm explaining myself.
I don't
Huh?
see it either, and I
They
think
don't
a
really
lot.
could be making money. Like
Huh?
they could be taxing it, making huge amounts of
Sure.
money. Instead, it's an
No,
expenditure.
but at the end,
criminalizing
it's
people.
and then how do you win a war on drugs? Who's the enemy?
It's the people.
How do you know you win?
Yeah.
And then the war on terrorism. That's okay. The war on terrorism. Okay. We are blaming that offshore companies in Panama and banks are promoting the financial of weapons of mass destruction. And I also, as a dumb guy, I went to do a search and I said, okay, what is weapons of mass destruction? and who build them? And who buy them? And when I saw, and I entered, good old Wikipedia, no? Because you don't have to
Sure.
search more than that. Basically, the greatest exporter of weapons of mass destruction are the U.S.,
Yep.
China, Germany, France, and the UK. Then Italy, Spain, and then Israel. But then again, who are the largest buyers of weapons of mass destruction? Syria, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Turkey. And you say, wait a minute. U.S. and the G8 are selling and exporting weapons of mass destruction to terrorist countries.
Right.
And they are saying that the problem is Panamanian banks.
Yeah, no, the problem is you.
Somebody's
Yeah, no.
pulling my leg.
That's right.
Huh? Somebody's pulling my leg.
It makes no sense.
I don't know. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't think so. I thought you were going to say Lockheed Martin and McDonnell Douglas, Aerojet, all
No,
these
well,
kind of
no,
giant
no.
companies with the weapons and the missiles. They're the ones that are producing the real terror.
But they are U.S. companies and U.K. companies, but in a sense, they are the governments that are telling Panama that we have to, that we are a tax haven because we are promoting weapons of mass destruction financing. But we don't have the banks. I mean, the banks are not. If you want to destroy the industry of weapons of mass destruction, shut down the goddamn industries in your country.
That's right.
That's it.
We know who are making the
Yeah,
weapons.
of
They're
course.
putting their name on
But
them.
of
They have
course.
giant brochures.
But of course, you don't need to know who's behind the Panamanian offshore company to know that.
No.
It sounds like they're just a bit jealous that they're missing out on the dollar.
I don't know, my friend.
But you mentioned
Should I be in
the,
trouble after I finish this interview? What?
probably not.
Can I go?
We don't have.
Can I go to Disney World next year when I go with my kids? Okay, what?
Yeah.
Can I
Disney-
call you? Something happened?
Yeah, let me know. I've got a lot of friends at Disneyland.
Yeah, man.
So yeah, we'll get you on that. But to go back to the DEA and the cannabis issue, so many of these people are like the Japanese soldiers after World War II. They're trapped in these caves. They've made all their busts. They made their whole career on busting cannabis users and dealers and putting them in jail and stopping them and winning this war on drugs. And to see California, Nevada, Colorado, all these other states legalizing
61%
recreationally.
of the population in the United States, more than 60% of the population in the United States says that marijuana should be legalized. So why the federal government doesn't do it? In my point of view, because it's business. There are 766 billion reasons not to end the world war. Why? if you add up big pharma, big oil, ¿cómo es que drug testing,
sure.
And then you
Workplace
have
industry,
security issues. The largest software industry growing right now is the anti-money laundering software.
Sure.
And
Every exchange we had on was
and
like,
then
we
you
have to do all this
cigarettes,
work.
alcohol,
Yes.
o sea, all that
Actually
interest,
damaging,
paper by ¿cómo es? Because paper by cannabis is also you can make paper out of cannabis.
Sure, hemp paper, hemp
Hemp
clothing,
and cannabis
all
is
of
the
these
same.
things.
The
Indeed, yeah.
difference between hemp and cannabis is a difference made by the FDA, and it's only a chemical difference about the amount of THC of each plant, but at the end it's the same plant.
Right.
No, so.
Well, it wasn't hemp targeted because it was taking money from the traditional kind of wood paper.
The problem is, well, the conspiracy theories that I don't, I have to understand, is that says that alcohol prohibition was abolished in the 1930s. In 1933, they approved the Marijuana Tax Act.
Mm-hmm.
Which didn't criminalize it, but created a tax, but made it impossible to cultivate tax.
They
People
never
say
gave out any
that
stamps.
At the same time, this guy Harry Anslinger was
FBI.
Mellon's son-in-law. The Treasury Department, they has invested a lot of money in DuPont, which at that time was developing the nylon artificial fabric, and he wanted to take out of the market the hemp fiber, which at that time represent 90%
That's right.
of all the textiles in the U.S.
Of course,
So I don't know if that's true, but makes sense. And then you got the issue of ¿cómo se llama? The news editor, Hearst.
Sure,
William Randolph Hearst was the
yes,
largest
yes.
investor in paper out of trees, made of
Sure,
trees.
sure.
And so and at the end you see, and coming from Latin America, the war on drugs is not being fought in Europe nor in the
No,
US. It's been
no.
in Europe, in Mexico,
Yep.
in Panama, in Guatemala,
Colombia.
in Honduras, in Colombia. We are being killed. We are being fighting the war on drugs in our territory, and that's not fair.
Mhm.
That's not fair, I think.
They're burning
and
the
at the
fields
end,
and
you have
such,
to
yes.
answer that one question: is the government has the authority to say to an adult, responsible adult, that what he can or cannot eat or drink or digest in any form in his body? You know, in my mind is no, because that's a personal question. The drug war is the very example of a crime without a victim, because the only victim is the person who is doing something. I'm not saying that kids should do it, no, but
Sure.
there are examples of like cigarettes and alcohol that you can regulate that, and it's a more sensible way. I think it should be time to understand that
It's been a long time,
Yeah,
and we
it's
fought
been
it for no
it's
reason.
been a lot of deaths,
Generation after
especially
generation.
from Latin
yes.
America, no? And a lot of people have been their life disrupted and frustrated just because they were caught up when they were in high school with a joint. Because in the States,
That's right.
you know, If you get caught smoking a joint, you lost. I mean, it's one of the crimes that is never deleted from your record, and you cannot get Social Security, etc., etc., etc.
Well, and, John Lennon had a song, 2 for 10, about a man who was sent to jail for 10 years for 2 joints. He went to the prison, he sang the song, and they let him go. And remember that the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution were both written on hemp paper. That's probably why they're still intact, especially
Thomas
the Declaration.
Jefferson and Washington.
That's right.
They
grew it themselves.
and they smoked it too.
Sure.
And
They wrote about it.
Not like Clinton. They did inhale.
No, they inhaled all right. They certainly inhaled.
You know that Benjamin Franklin attended when he was ambassador in France prior to the revolution. He was the most famous person in France at that time of the Enlightenment.
Sure.
And he attended. He was the person who escorted Voltaire, and when he was introduced as a Mason in the Paris Lodge.
Wow.
And during those meetings, one of the customs was to think, speak, and smoke. No, read the books.
It's been a long time. I know, going back to the Greeks, when they would all go to the Oracle of Delphi, they would have some kind of a mushroom or some kind of an extract.
Get no pure oracle without mushrooms.
They would have visions. They would have visions and power and all of these things that we've learned about are all going back to this.
You need
That's
mushrooms,
right.
you need psychotropic stuff in order to have an oracle.
I think they had some mold that was growing on the walls, some kind of moss and things, and they
But at the end-
analyzed it. Yeah.
I have never seen somebody killing a person or doing something after smoking a joint.
That's right.
I have seen a lot of people doing that and worse things because taking something else, which are legal, and even alcohol.
Alcohol.
So
A
I'm
lot
just
of
trying
violence.
to, not to defend, but to find the reason behind it.
In the UK,
There's no reason behind. At least in my mind, I don't see any reason. There any logic.
No.
There are 500,000. According to that was part of my speech on Friday. That's why I have the statistics.
Nailing it, man.
In according to the drug, I don't remember.
DEA, sure.
No, it's not the
No,
DEA. It's
someone
the other
else.
side.
Okay.
The Drug Enforcement, the Drugs Alliance.
Right.
It's a lobby group that's trying to promote the legalization of marijuana. And I searched it before I came here. These are statistics of 2016. About 490,000 people die of tobacco because of tobacco.
Yes, absolutely.
Probably around 90,000 out of alcohol, without counting drunk driving. So if you count drunk driving, it goes like another 100,000 more.
Sure.
Then aspirin, 3,000 overdose on aspirin.
Wow.
Coffee, like caffeine.
Sure.
Caffeine.
Yeah. Red
5,000.
Bull, all these energy drinks.
Then you got diabetes, 90,000. Blood sugar, marijuana, 0. So
in the UK, a number of years back, I think it was in the last 10 years, the science advisor did a report, and he said that this is the science advisor to the government, and he said that alcohol is as bad, if not worse, than heroin, and they sacked him.
No, don't do that. No. I don't think that is. I will sack him too. No.
I think he was talking about the if you across the board.
I think at the end is
personal choice, personal
choice.
Yes.
People should be. I think the governments instead of following a military campaign, they should actually promote scientific research and allow information, good information, scientific-based information to spread, so people can make their own choices. As simple as that. Because then again, how you win this war? When you going to end it? There were 50,000 marijuana users in 1937 when the war on drugs. When the first anti-law marijuana law started. Now there are over, I don't know how many. So it has been proved that it doesn't diminish the demand, it doesn't diminish the offer.
Well, in Vietnam, they said that they had to save the hearts and the minds of the people, and that sometimes they had to destroy a village to save it, and they would go through with flamethrowers and destroy the huts and completely displace the people, changing their lives completely. And maybe the war on drugs was like that, and it was just this destructive force that moved through us, and that to win it, we have to change the hearts and minds. And in one closing question here, I want to go back to the beginning when we talked about Facebook and Instagram and how these kids are just endlessly sharing. And it's not so much just that they're sharing everything, it's also that there's this now permanent record, and that anything you say or do horrible on Facebook will be with you forever and could cost you a job at any point. Even I don't like him, but the new Supreme Court justice was tarred and feathered by things that he did in high school, and that this endless record is so much worse for the kids, where there's pictures and there's Facebook. How can we change the kids' minds? How can we teach them about
I don't
all
know.
of
I
this?
tell you, when my kids started using public,
Facebook, Snapchat,
how do you call
Instagram,
that?
social media.
Social media,
Yes,
social
yes.
media, social media. And I say, listen, I say to which they are now 21, 18, and 14 at that time.
Should be responsible
I
for
say,
that,
no.
yes.
In my time, when we went to parties and we started doing pictures with it,
Yeah.
or otherwise we have to develop. We have to, after the party was gone, we have to go to the developer, and then and at the end, most of the time, the film roll never got developed because
it costs money even.
It costs money, but then you don't want to know what you want to see. But now, one word speaks louder than one picture can speak louder than 1,000 words.
That's right.
And you have to, you can share whatever you want to share, but you have to be aware of that.
That's right.
And so therefore, you have to be in a sense responsible and say, okay, what I'm going to share? I'm going to share things that I don't think is going to hunt me down in the future.
So.
That's it. Then again, that's basic. At the end, an adult has to be responsible, and you don't need the government to teach you how to be responsible. Because by definition, the governments are very fucking irresponsible. No?
Sure, the debt clock is always going up, and they're always borrowing more. So
that's I think that would be okay.
I think that's a great note to end on, and as the new LCD Sound System song says, all of the Polaroids went away. For the children of the 80s, their past has vanished. For the children of the 90s and the aughts, it will always be there on Facebook. It will always come back to them. So somehow we've got to reach them. We've got to teach the children about sharing and the values of privacy.
Teach the children well, como decía
that's right.
Crosby, Still and Nash.
Yeah.
Teach the children well.
And we can end this war on drugs, and we can change things with Bitcoin. Thank you so much, Adolfo, for joining us. Absolutely a treasure. It was fantastic. I think we're going to take a break. It's starting to become a fishbowl in here. I can see my breath. It's very hot. There's no ventilation, and I'm hungry. So give us a thumbs up and a share. We'll be back later. Bye-bye.